Meng Lei was so frustrated that he was close to vomiting blood. One must know that limitless pickup was a chargeable function that even cost 10 billion gold coins per attempt. But look at what the system did. What did it pick up for him? Underwear? A broadsword? A dwarf's leather boots? An old man's walking stick? Wasn't the trash system being a little too much of a scammer? Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained the fallen Titan bloodline. Will you assimilate it? Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a ferro-tungsten ironwood staff. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained the innate special ability teleport. Will you assimilate it? Wait a moment. Innate special ability? Meng Lei's eyes widened at once, and he almost jumped into the air. I've picked up an innate special ability? And teleport, no less? Oh, mother of mine, is this even possible? What was an innate special ability? Meng Lei was all too clear on that. It was special abilities that certain powerful lifeforms possessed. For example, the dragon's dragon breath, the behemoth's magic immunity, the elemental fairies' elemental transformations, or Little Gold's extra-large gut space. All of these were innate special abilities. Although they varied in power, every type of innate special ability had its own extremely powerful characteristics. Teleport? In other words, teleporting from one place to another? Just the sound of it alone was already crazy enough. Assimilate it. Assimilate it at once. Boom! Upon the command, peculiar silver energy suddenly surged into Meng Lei's mind, instantly spreading to every corner of his body. Into his limbs, into every cell in his body. A moment later, Meng Lei oddly vanished. By the time he reappeared, he was already 1,000 meters away from where he originally was. He neither caused any airflow currents nor did he make any whizzing sounds as he moved. He had directly jumped from where he had originally been to a spot 1,000 meters away. This is crazy. In just the blink of an eye, I'm already 1,000 meters away? I clearly didn't feel myself moving and had only thought of coming to this spot. And then I did? So, is this what teleportation is like? Meng Lei was thrilled beyond comparison. He hadn't the slightest idea of how teleportation worked, and neither did he know how to activate it. He'd merely thought of going 1,000 meters away just now, and then he had. How strange, yet miraculous. It was just like instinct. So this is what an innate special ability is, where you don't need to even know the theory behind it, yet you simply can achieve it. It's too miraculous. I'll try it again. Whoosh, whoosh. He disappeared at times and appeared at times. Meng Lei didn't get tired of it at all, continuously teleporting here and there. After a period of experiments, Meng Lei discovered that the furthest he could teleport to was related to the range that his divine cognition could cover. He could teleport to wherever his divine cognition could reach. It neither depleted his power of divinity nor his stamina. All it depleted was the power of his divine spirit. With this teleportation ability, who would be able to catch me? Meng Lei was in such a fantastic mood that snot bubbles were forming at his nose. If I have the spare time, I can head to the 3 great empires' treasuries and take a walk there. Ding! Assimilation successful. Hosts wealth plus 34 laws of nature origin crystals. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a piece of superior quality fur clothing. The system notifications finally came to a stop. Meng Lei swept his gaze across the items. They were all useless pieces of trash. They were either someone's underwear, someone's boots, or someone's walking stick. Totally trash. But with this teleportation innate special ability, those 100 laws of nature origin crystals were simply too well spent. Highly satisfied with his gains from the 100 limitless pickup attempts this time, Meng Lei felt like he wanted a little more. System. Another 100 times. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained Grandpa Kell's robe. Ding! Assimilation successful. Another 100 limitless pickups. However, he didn't pick up anything good this time. All 100 laws of nature origin crystals had gone to waste. Another 100 times. Meng Lei's mule-like stubbornness had emerged. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a fusion laws of nature fragment. Will you assimilate it? Another fused laws of nature fragment? Meng Lei promptly gave the order for assimilation. A moment later, he had mastered all the information contained in the fusion laws of nature fragment. Metal Dark Fusion Laws of Nature? Meng Lei cast a glance at his stats interface. True enough, Metal Dark Laws of Nature assimilation rate had also been activated. Like his Wood Earth Laws of Nature assimilation rate, it was also at 0.1%. Wood Earth and Metal Dark. That's 4 types of laws of nature. Ding! Assimilation successful. Host's physical body constitution plus 2,876. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a Dark Knight's Greatsword. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a Divine Core. Will you assimilate it? Trattino basso? A Divine Core? Exclaimed Meng Lei as he did an emergency brake. Then, with a flick of his right wrist, he brought out a fascinating crystal that gave off a blue glow. It emanated such an intimidating aura that Meng Lei even felt the urge to prostrate on the ground. A Divine Core. I've actually picked up a Divine Core. O Mother of God, this luck of mine. Meng Lei examined the Divine Core sitting in his palm as his heart pounded wildly. A Divine Core. This was a Divine Core, a priceless treasure that innumerable life forms, innumerable saint domains, and innumerable half-deities dreamed of, and he had actually picked one up? Wasn't that simply infuriating? Judging from the power of divinity energy fluctuations, it's probably a water elemental Divine Core. I can totally assimilate this Divine Core. Meng Lei couldn't resist licking his lips. Once I assimilate it, I'll become a real deity right away. How amazing! The temptation is simply too great. It's just that I wonder what grade this Divine Core is. Alright, let's ask Dodola. What the heck? Where did you get that? At the sight of the water elemental Divine Core sitting in Meng Lei's palm, Dodola got a huge shock. That's a lesser deity's Divine Core. Where did you steal that from? I picked it up, answered Meng Lei honestly. Picked it up? Do I look mentally challenged to you? Dodola had a yeah right as if I'll believe you. You rotten old man. Look on its face. Never mind. I don't care where you'd gotten this thing from, but no matter what, you mustn't assimilate it. Remember, you absolutely mustn't. It'll destroy you if you do. Understand? Don't worry. I know what to do. Meng Lei took a deep breath and forcibly suppressed the urge to assimilate the Divine Core before storing it in a spatial ring. As the saying went, out of sight, out of mind. It'd be fine once it was out of his sight. By the way, don't let your friends assimilate that Divine Core. Either, Dodola warned. Assimilating an unprocessed Divine Core is no different from seeking death on one's own. They need only to show a moment of carelessness, and the Divine Core's master will steal and occupy their body right away. Don't worry, I know. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained Natalie the Devil's Horn. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained an Abyss Osteodragon Scale. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained trash. All trash. Apart from the Divine Core, not a single item is any good. I've made a huge loss this time. At this point, a great, lofty mountain appeared before him. Mountain ranges rose and fell, overlapping with one another as they stretched on continuously without end. Ancient forests, lush and dense, filled the mountain. I've arrived here so quickly. Meng Lei gazed at the lofty mountain, the corners of his lips lifting. His divine cognition spread out and shrouded the great mountain within. A fair number of saint domains were hidden in the mountain. In fact, there was even a great army of dragon people standing guard. The teleportation magic circle that leads to Dragon Island is right in this mountain. Let me see, where is it? Found it! The next moment, Meng Lei arrived at a wide, dark, and deep cave. The teleportation magic circle was right inside. That's the teleportation magic circle. Meng Lei stepped right into it. A moment later, he arrived at a beautiful, scenic little island. The island wasn't big. All around it was the azure blue, endless ocean where ripples undulated on the surface. The sky and the ocean shared the same color, and great, crashing waves went through the ocean. What rich magic elements! What clear laws of nature! Those dragons sure know how to pick a good place. As he took in the rich magic elements on the island, Meng Lei's divine cognition began to spread outward like a tidal wave. How audacious! A furious roar rang out, and a pitch-black black dragon charged into the sky from an island. It glared furiously at Meng Lei as it roared. How dare you probe around Dragon Island so brazenly? Do you have a death wish? All right, I've decided that it shall be you. Meng Lei took a step forward and came right up to the black dragon. He said with a smile, Hey, big guy, let me ask for some directions. Why you? How did you appear here? Blood drained from the alarmed and doubtful black dragon's countenance. You don't need to care about that. Meng Lei shook his head and asked, Tell me, where's Goblin Frederick? How impudent! Is the Grandmaster's name something you can say? The black dragon was furious. Damned human! I don't sense any dragon aura on you. Who exactly are you? How dare you trespass on Dragon Island? How disobedient! Meng Lei shook his head lightly. Then, he teleported to a spot right above the black dragon's head and stamped his foot down. Boom! The black dragon let out a sad, shrill roar and crashed mercilessly down onto the island below. Bam! The island shook a few times intensely as a huge pit formed from the crash. The black dragon was embedded right into it. Get out here! With a grabbing motion through the air, Meng Lei easily caught the black dragon and pulled it out. The black dragon was currently in an extremely pathetic state. Blood was spurting from its mouth, and it had broken a few bones. Its left wing was almost severed at the base, with only a bit of skin and flesh still connecting it to its body. Esser, spare me! The black dragon groaned in pain and agony and pleaded for mercy repeatedly. It knew that it had run into a wall this time and was close to tears. You just don't give up until reality has to hit you in the face. Now you're behaving, aren't you? All you dragons are the same. Meng Lei snorted lightly. Then he ordered, Answer my question. Otherwise, this island will be your burial ground. I'll talk. The black dragon quickly replied, Sir, continue forward in this direction, and you'll see a gigantic island about 3,000 miles away. That's Grandmaster Goblin's Island. 3,000 miles? Very well. With a flick of Meng Lei's fingers, a wind blade shot out and pierced through the black dragon's head. Even till its final moments, the unfortunate black dragon couldn't understand why Meng Lei had still killed it, even though it had clearly already answered him. It simply couldn't rest in peace. 3,000 miles was no issue to Meng Lei. After consecutively teleporting a dozen times or so, he easily found the gigantic island that the black dragon had spoken of. Meng Lei immediately knew that he had made the correct decision in coming here with a glance. 1, 2, 3, 8, 9. There are actually a total of 9 half-deities. As expected, the dragon's heritage is indeed rich. Meng Lei was incredibly wistful about this. As the highest form of combat power on Heaven's Vault continent, as well as deities that walked the earth, just how rare were half-deities. Yet the dragons actually had a total of 9 half-deities. Their heritage was simply too rich. To be able to dominate Heaven's Vault continent for 40,000 years without any sign of toppling, they indeed hold their weight. Meng Lei took a deep breath. Then he let out a long howl. Goblin Frederick, did you think that I wouldn't be able to find you just because you're hiding on Dragon Island? Hurry up and get out here to face your death. His voice was like rolling thunder that instantly exploded with a boom in the sky above the gigantic island, shocking the birds and beasts and filling the marine beasts with fear and trepidation. Meng Lei. Chapter 212 8 Half-Deities. Killing a Dragon King in an instant. That cave was Goblin's den. A thick layer of golden bricks paved the way and covered the walls, which were embedded with all sorts of glittering jewels. They lit up the entire cave and made it glitter with gold, forming a beautiful and spectacular sight. As one went deeper into the cave, what entered their sight were gold coins piled like mountains, gold nuggets, and gold horse hooves. All these stacked together into a gigantic dragon's nest. It was Goblin's den. Surrounding the den was also piles and piles of jewels, elemental crystals, laws of nature origin crystals. Every single item was a rare and precious treasure. Any random piece was enough to turn a beggar into a tycoon. At the moment, aside from Goblin himself, a few other figures were also at the empty space in front of the den, comprising both men and women, old and young. Every one of them had a strong, surging aura and vast, majestic divine power. They were half-deities. Not one more and not one fewer, they made up exactly 8 people. They were the dragon's 8 other half-deities. That knave has killed my metal elemental divine incarnation and cut off my path to deification. Goblin's visage was contorted with rage, and deep hatred shot from within his eyes. I, Goblin, swear that I will never become a god if I don't cut him into 1,000,000 pieces. How dare a human be this traitorous and perverse? He should be killed. Since the Empire's founding to this date, such horrifying events have never once happened during the last 40,000-odd years. His behavior is heinous to the extreme and unforgivable. What else is there to say? These traitorous renegades should be slashed with 1,000 swords and sentenced to capital punishment. Looks like we've still treated the humans too well all these years. How dare those lowly monkeys show such insubordination and disrespect to those above them just because they think they have a bit of power. It's time that we rectify things properly. Kill him. Make his head roll. Make his blood flow unceasingly. Let those cheap, lowly worms know that they, humans, will only be befitting of being slaves for eternity. The other half-deities spoke up one after another, sentencing Meng Lei to death with just a few simple words, and even decided the attitude that Dragon God Empire would take toward humans. Goblin was greatly satisfied with the half-deities' stances. He wasn't a match for Meng Lei, so he needed everyone to attack together if he wanted to take revenge. Amo Lin, what do you have to say? Upon noticing one of the half-deities' silence, Goblin couldn't help but frown slightly, somewhat displeased. An alarmed and doubtful Amo Lin asked, Grandmaster, are you sure that the culprit is named Meng Lei? That knave killed my metal elemental divine incarnation. I'd recognize him even if he had been turned into ashes. How would I possibly mistake someone else for him? Goblin let out an icy snort and asked, What? Do you have some sort of history with that knave? Do you know him? I indeed know a young fellow named Meng Lei, but he is only a Saint Domain. He shouldn't be the same person as the knave that killed the Grandmaster's divine incarnation. Amolin shook her head. For some reason, she had a rather foreboding feeling in her. No matter who he is and whether or not you know him, for daring to kill my divine incarnation, he has to die, replied Goblin coldly. Grandmaster is right. The other half-deities indicated their stance one after another. Wonderful, Goblin stood and said. Since that's the case, then let's head to Heaven's Vault continent now and slay that knave. We'll follow what Grandmaster says. As Grandmaster wishes. The other half-deities got up one after another. Goblin Frederick, did you think that I wouldn't be able to find you just because you're hiding on Dragon Island? Hurry up and get out here to face your death. At that moment, a long thunderous howl suddenly reverberated in the skies and boomed in everyone's ears. The howl was as though rolling thunder, so loud that it almost deafened them all. Who is it? Exclaimed all the startled half-deities. It's that knave. Goblin's wrinkled old face was rather contorted as he spat. To think he has actually charged all the way to Dragon Island. He's too much. All the other half-deities were astonished. Grandmaster, is the one shouting and ranting outside right now that knave named Meng Lei? There's no mistaking that voice. It's that wicked knave, replied a teeth-gnashing goblin as a chilly gleam appeared in his eyes. How audacious! How impudent! How presumptuous! How brazen! To think he actually dares to storm Dragon Island. He's utterly belittling us, dragons. To think he has actually come here before we've even gone looking for him. All the half-deities flew into a rage. During the long passage of time that they, the dragons, had stood tall and strong in Heaven's Vault continent. When had anyone ever pursued them all the way to Dragon Island? Never. Not even once. Yet someone was actually bold and brazen enough to carry out such a treasonous act. This is an insult to us. An impossibly great insult, one of the half-deities declared coldly. This insult can only be erased by that knave's blood. Kill him. Show him the consequences of challenging the dragon's authority. Follow me. Goblin let out a cold snort, and then he led the rest of the half-deities out of the cave. It really is you. Amelin was the first to leave the cave. She had spied Meng Lei, who was standing proudly in the sky, with just a glance. A huge shudder couldn't help but come over her as disbelief flashed across her eyes. It's been a while, Elder Amelin. A smile appeared on Meng Lei's countenance as he greeted Amelin. He held somewhat complex feelings toward Amos' younger sister. Meng Lei, why is it you? Amelin didn't understand how Meng Lei had suddenly become a half-deity, but that was no longer of any importance. The important question was, why was Meng Lei challenging Dragon God Empire's authority, to the extent that he had even charged all the way here to Dragon Island? Meng Lei replied slowly, for the power of faith. Power of faith? A huge jolt went through Amelin as she exclaimed, are you intending to fight for Dragon God Empire's power of faith resources? You're out of your mind. Do you know what you're doing? I know very well what I'm doing. Meng Lei shook his head slowly. You're also a half-deity. You should know how important the power of faith is to us. You're out of your mind. The dragons will never let you off for challenging their authority like this. Neither will the dragon god. Amelin shook her head. She didn't refute Meng Lei's statement because he was right. To half-deities like them, the power of faith was indeed too important. It could strengthen their divine spirit, convert power of divinity, help them to comprehend laws of nature, as well as shorten the time they needed to achieve deification. If it were possible, any half-deity out there would wish to have their own power of faith resources and their own power of faith territory, so that they could collect a vast amount of power of faith every day. Unfortunately, this was but just an extravagant wish. Heaven's Vault continent's power of faith resources had long since been split up among various parties down to the very last bit. The dragon god, the titan spiritual god, the beast god, and the fairy goddess had seized all the power of faith for themselves. There was nothing left for half-deities like them at all. Therefore, no matter how much they longed for it, they could only suppress the desire. They didn't have the guts to fight the four true gods for power of faith. Yet that was exactly what Meng Lei was doing. This was an act of great taboo in this world, and a challenge of a true god's authority. He was purely just having a death wish. What's there to fear on the road to deification? Meng Lei shook his head lightly. Elder Amelin, you're OL President's younger sister, so I won't fight with you. I hope you can stay out of this. Even if I were to stay out of this, you won't be a match for them either. Amelin sighed and said, Meng Lei, give up. The dragon's blood flows through your veins, too. As long as you stop now, I can plead for leniency on your behalf. It's useless even if you plead for leniency. Goblin led the other 7 half-deities and charged toward them. Amelin, have you become muddle-headed? That knave's sins are so unforgivable. Yet you still want to plead for leniency on his behalf. Grandmaster, he's just a child. Amelin quickly said, everyone has moments of folly during their yout. Say no more, Goblin said coldly. He killed my metal elemental divine incarnation and thoroughly cut off my road to deification. We are mortal enemies, and it will never rest until one of us is dead. To think it's actually you, little brat. One of the 7 half-deities, a black dragon half-deity, was someone familiar, Elder Thaniel. His eyes, filled with disbelief, bore into Meng Lei as he exclaimed, it's only been a few days, yet you've broken through to the half-deity stage and even killed the Grandmaster's metal elemental divine incarnation? A separation of 3 days makes one a changed man. Meng Lei said with a slight smile, Elder Thaniel, on account of how we're acquainted with each other, I can refrain from fighting you too. The same goes for the other half-deities too. My target is Goblin alone, and has nothing to do with all of you. You little knave, who do you think you are? A green dragon half-deity with a head of green hair and holding a snake staff spoke in a cold and imposing voice. He said, "Nothing to do with us? Did you think you can leave Dragon Island alive today? To have the audacity to charge all the way here, you're really foolish to the extreme and full of yourself. Kid, since you're here, then don't think of ever leaving. Dragon Island will be your final resting place. After I kill you, I'll grind your corpse into fish bait and scatter them into the ocean. To dare charge all the way to Dragon Island, you clearly show no respect for us Dragon Island half-deities. How can we possibly condone you?" The dragon half-deities spoke up one by one, full of murderous intent. At the sight, Amolin couldn't help but sigh again and again. She knew that there was no going back anymore. "Since all of you have a death wish, then don't hold this against me." Meng Lei shook his head lightly. "Just as well. Dragon Island is a beautiful and scenic place with clear and distinct laws of nature, making it a place that's very suitable as a burial ground for all of you. How impudent! How presumptuous! How condescending! Offer up your life, you little knave." The green dragon half-deity let out an icy snort as he wielded his snake staff.
Divine technique, shadow snack.
He had only just spoken when his head of green hair shot into the sky and turned into an infinite number of green poisonous snakes that went biting toward Meng Lei. Every snake was highly toxic. Even normal half-deities would be reduced into a puddle of pus and die from the poison upon being bitten even just once. They were incredibly vicious and poisonous. "That's all you got?" Meng Lei shook his head and chuckled. Then, he quietly vanished from where he was, causing the poisonous green snakes to miss their target. "He's dodged it." The green dragon half-deity's countenance changed slightly. "Elder Horus, be careful. That renegade's agility is very—" Goblin hastily shouted a warning, but what a shame that he was ultimately still a step too late. A cry rang out and then the green dragon half-deity plummeted toward the ocean like a launched cannon. On the other hand, Meng Lei had actually soundlessly appeared at the spot where the green dragon half-deity was originally standing. "Why do you even bother, everyone?" Meng Lei gazed at the dragon half-deities standing near him and said, "Why do you insist on becoming dead dragons when you can be living dragons? Are your brains filled with sh*T? Then he vanished again. By the time he reappeared, he had already arrived at the ocean surface. The green dragon half-deity happened to be crashing straight down at this point. Meng Lei brought out the god-slaying spear and with a casual flip, splurt, amid shrill dragon cries, the god-slaying spear instantly pierced through the green dragon half-deity's throat. A spout of blood sprayed from the wound and dyed the ocean beneath them red. Splash! The green dragon half-deity died on the spot and turned into its true form. It was actually a 5,000 feet long dragon king-level green dragon with green scales all over it. Elder Horus knew. One strike of the spear, that was all it took to instantly kill Horus. "Just what kind of combat strength is that?" a dragon half-deity exclaimed. Elder Horus had already lit up the divine fire, yet he couldn't even parry a single move from his spear. "In that case He didn't finish the rest of his sentence, but all the other half-deities understood, regardless, and a chill that ran bone-deep ran down their spines. There were typically 3 ways of evaluating a half-deity's strength: cultivation level, power of divinity, and their divine body. The higher their cultivation level, the stronger and more solid their power of divinity, and the stronger and sturdier their divine body, the more powerful they naturally were. Elder Horus had already successfully lit up the divine fire, thereby placing him at the mid-level half-deity stage. Moreover, he was even a pure-blooded green dragon and had even comprehended wood elemental laws of nature. Therefore, his divine body was undoubtedly strong. His only disadvantage was his power of divinity. Like all the other half-deities, because he didn't have enough worshippers to provide him with the power of faith, Elder Horus was definitely deficient in power of divinity. There was no doubt about that. But even so, as a great mid-level half-deity expert, he had actually been instantly killed with a single spear jab. Was the gap between the two of them really that big? A half-deity asked gravely, "Did any of you catch a clear view of his actions?" "No, I didn't." Neither did I. I couldn't sense any power of divinity fluctuations. There weren't any airflow fluctuations, either. How did he manage to get there? Could it be teleportation? The half-deities' countenances changed at once. Then they shook their heads. That's impossible. Teleportation is a spatial innate special ability. It has never appeared in Heaven's vault continent before. Then how did he get there? No matter what it may be, let's be prepared to fight with all we've got. Otherwise, we may lose our lives. The half-deities nodded, their countenances turning grim and grave. As half-deities of the dragons, they were prideful beings, but not conceited. When facing a fearsome existence that could instantly kill Horus, they must give it all they've got. He's dead. Now it's your turns. Meng Lei licked off the dragon blood on the tip of the spear as his gaze swept across the remaining 7 half-deities. How do you wish to die? Who's next? Let's go at him together and subdue that knave. Then all 7 half-deities attacked simultaneously. God's domain. Buzz. 7 terrifying energy waves descended upon Meng Lei, instantly caging the area in the sky where he was and also imprisoning him to the spot. Divine technique. Absolute zero. With a furious roar, a frost colossal dragon half-deity opened his mouth, and a chilly golden current sprayed forth from within, sealing the area where Meng Lei was in ice. Under the catalyst of power of divinity, not only could absolute zero seal everything in ice, but it could also freeze the air. With God's domain and Elder Jacques absolute zero, we'll definitely be able to subdue that knave. We must unleash our strongest attacks next so that we don't give him any chance to even catch his breath. Divine technique. Tempest of annihilation. Divine technique. 3,000 lightning strikes. Divine technique. 10,000 swords return home. Divine technique. Dark withering bones. Divine technique. Withering snowflakes. Divine technique. Meteor drop. Divine technique. Water god descends. Boom! Various divine techniques were dumped onto Meng Lei as though they came free of charge. The area in the sky where Meng Lei was instantly broke and turned into a black hole. Gales wreaked havoc. Ice chips sprayed about. Golden swords flew and shot everywhere. Waves churned and rolled. Dust and earth flew about. Power of divinity of various elements clashed and collided madly in the black hole, bombarding the area and turning it extremely chaotic. It was no exaggeration to say that this was definitely the most dangerous place in Heaven's vault continent. Even a half-deity that had already manifested a divine core would also meet their demise should they be trapped within. Sigh. Why did he have to do that? A hint of lament and pity flashed across Amelin's eyes. Meng Lei was ultimately someone whom her elder brother had wanted to protect, even if it had meant death. As the proverb went, "Love me, love my dog." Because of her elder brother, she didn't wish to see Meng Lei die. Alas, there was nothing she could do. The severity of the troubles that Meng Lei had caused was simply too great. The 7 elders' intentions to kill him were unprecedentedly strong. All she could do was to choose to remain neutral and help neither party. What terrifying power of divinity fluctuations! Seems like it's coming from Grandmaster Goblin's island? What exactly has happened over there? Let's head over and take a look. Dragon Island appeared to stretch on boundlessly, but there ultimately was still a limit to it. The torrential power of divinity waves had instantly spread throughout the whole of Dragon Island and alarmed everyone there. Surely that knave is dead by now? After furiously and indiscriminately bombarding the spot for quite a while, the 7 heavily panting half-deities finally ceased their attacks. Then, they tried their best to see if they could detect Meng Lei's presence in the sky that had already been turned upside down from the chaos. Upon discovering that his presence was no longer there, they heaved a sigh of relief at once. Well, no one could have survived their 7 half-deities' joint attacks after all. No one. That knave is finally dead. I had certainly broken into a cold sweat from fear just now. One of the half-deities, who was still experiencing lingering fears, said, "I was really worried that he would suddenly come charging out and also deal me a jab with his spear just now." "You don't say." Another half-deity sighed and remarked, "What a pity about Elder Horus. He died too tragically. Elder Horus died a worthy death. Goblin spoke up at this point and said, "That knave is dead. The Empire's crisis has been resolved, and the dragon's might and authority have been protected. Elder Horus deserves great credit for that. Grandmaster is right." The other half-deities very much approved of his statement. "Dead? Who says I'm dead?" A mocking voice rang out at this point. The half-deities' countenances changed drastically, and then they saw Meng Lei standing behind them with one hand in his pocket and the other carrying the god-slaying spear, watching them cheerfully. You're not dead." The half-deities felt as if their minds had exploded. They instantly retreated with a burst of speed, fear, anger, and horror in their hearts. Under the bombardment of such raging power of divinity attacks, he was actually still alive? Was he really human? He's actually still alive. Amelin, who was just as shocked, stared at Meng Lei with disbelief. "Do all of you really wish that much for my death?" Meng Lei shook his head lightly. "Your attacks were certainly fearsome. Even a half-deity that had already manifested a divine core might have perished under your siege. Unfortunately, I'm the one whom you've encountered, so you're destined only for tragedy. Dear all, let's fight with all you've got. Roar! Howl!" The half-deities promptly transformed into their true forms. They were actually 7 several thousand feet long colossal dragons in varying forms. Their wings flapped as the force of their dragon might fluctuated. Their claws were razor-sharp and murderous hostility gleamed in their eyes. A 4,000 feet long frost colossal dragon, a 5,000 feet long earth dragon, blue dragon, and tempest colossal dragon each, and a 6,000 feet long thunder dragon, black dragon, and golden colossal dragon each. Kill! With a roar, 7 dragon king-level colossal dragons charged furiously toward Meng Lei, just like 7 lions pursuing a honey badger in the plains. Razor-sharp claws, cold, gleaming fangs, strong, powerful tails, and dragon breath capable of destroying everything. Every attack contained a fearsome level of destructiveness. Switching over to physical attacks? What a bunch of fools! Meng Lei almost burst into laughter. The combination of God's domain and divine technique attacks could more or less still give me a bit of a hard time, but transforming into your true forms, that's practically sending yourselves to death's door. Dear all, since all of you are so sincerely giving away your lives, then I shall receive them without standing on any ceremony. The first one. Meng Lei took a stride forward and quietly appeared above Goblin, the golden colossal dragon's head. Without any hesitation, he raised the god-slaying spear and stabbed downward. With a splurt, it pierced right through Goblin's head. Howl! Goblin let out a shrill roar, his blood spraying everywhere like a waterfall. The second one. Meng Lei chose the Earth Dragon. As an Earth Elemental Colossal Dragon, the Earth Dragon's defenses were definitely one of the top few among the 7 Colossal Dragons. With a body full of indestructible ochre-yellow scales, and especially when it cast its divine technique-level Earth Guardian's saintly armor, one could call it absolute defenses. True enough, the Earth Dragon had put on the Earth Guardian's saintly armor a long time ago and was protecting itself, lest it ended up like Horus. What a shame that it won't be of any use. Given Meng Lei's strength and coupled with the god-slaying spear's sharpness, the spear pierced through the Earth Dragon's head without any surprises, and it died on the spot. Elder Carol, at the sight of the 2 who were killed by Meng Lei in the blink of an eye, the remaining 5 colossal dragons were extremely horrified and frightened, causing their swift and forceful attacks to slow down. They might have slowed down, but Meng Lei didn't show any mercy. Splurt, splurt, splurt. Meng Lei came and went like a ghost, delivering 4 jabs in succession. The Blue Dragon, Thunder Dragon, Frost Colossal Dragon, and the Tempest Colossal Dragon were successively stabbed dead. Collect! All of these were superior-grade dragon flesh, so Meng Lei would never discard them, of course. He stored them in the Tower of Time for preservation so that he could eat them as snacks in the future. In just a moment, Thaniel the Black Dragon was the only one left in the sky. He stared at the empty sky and then at Meng Lei, who was looking at him. Then he made a run for it, Menglay went on top of Thaniel's back and asked, Elder Thaniel, where are you going? I. Thaniel was so terrified that his insides were close to rupturing. He shook like a leaf in his dragon form, unable to utter even a word. Not in the mood to answer? Menglay pressed the god-slaying spear against the back of Thaniel's head. You don't need to bother answering anymore. Then, make full use of the time you have and get on your way. You're just in time to group up with your little companions and report to the netherworld together. Spare me. Terrified out of his wits, golden yellow rain began to fall and trickle from Thaniel's bottom. Sir, spare me. Give me a way out. Can you have a bit of shame? Menglay was rendered speechless as he watched Elder Thaniel, who was so frightened that he was raining. He said, You don't want me to kill you? Give me a reason why I shouldn't. Thaniel had initially wanted to say that they were acquainted with each other, after all. But at the thought of how arrogant and bossy he had behaved at their first meeting, he couldn't bring himself to say it anymore. Were he to mention it, what if Menglay ended up giving him a jab instead? What is it about us? Menglay prompted with a slight smile. Amolin. Thaniel caught sight of Amolin, who was standing at the side. As though grasping at straws, he said, Beg for mercy on my behalf, Amolin. I don't want to die. Upon hearing what Thaniel had said, Amolin suddenly snapped back to reality and gazed at Menglay with a complex look in her eyes. One jab each. With just 6 jabs of his spear, Menglay had killed 6 half-deity elders. This fact had thoroughly astounded her. She simply couldn't imagine how Menglay, who had still been just a Saint Domain a few days ago, had gotten such fearsome power. Amolin said with a wry smile, Menglay, all the Dragon Island half-deities have been wiped out by you. If it's possible, do spare Elder Thaniel's life. Since Elder Amolin has said so, I'll spare your life. Mount looked at Thaniel and said, But while you may escape death, you cannot avoid punishment. I'll give you a chance. If you become my mount, I'll spare your life. Why your mount? Thaniel's countenance changed dramatically. What? Are you unwilling? Menglay's expression darkened slightly. I'm willing to submit. Ding. 1 Frost Colossal Dragon killed. 2,573 Laws of Nature Origin Crystals gained. Ding. 1 Thunder Dragon killed. 6,426 Laws of Nature Origin Crystals gained. Ding. 1 Golden Colossal Dragon killed. 7,218 Laws of Nature Origin Crystals gained. As a half-deity and a dragon, Thaniel took great pride in himself. Thus, making him a human's mount was worse than killing him. But when faced with the cold Menglay and looking at the god-slaying spear, from which dragon blood was dripping, in his hand, Thaniel was taken over by fear. As a half-deity, he had a near-eternal lifespan. How could he bear to die? Once he was dead, everything would go up in smoke. There would no longer be any meaning to anything. I'm willing to submit. At last, Thaniel made his choice. Freedom? Dignity? All of that can go to hell. I want to live. You don't need to tell you what you should be doing, right? Said an aloof Menglay meaningfully. Yes, sir. With a wry laugh, a wisp of divine spirit origin energy flew out of the area between Thaniel's brows. Once Menglay refined the wisp of divine spirit origin energy, he would completely control Thaniel's life and death. He could destroy the wisp of divine spirit origin energy anytime he wanted and take Thaniel's life. Subduing a deity was simply this easy. It needed neither a contract nor a blood pact. One needed only to refine the other party's divine spirit origin energy, and they would be able to completely control their life and death. Elder Thaniel. A wave of grief and sorrow came over Amolin. Just how prideful and arrogant had Elder Thaniel once been. Yet, in order to live, he had actually abandoned his dignity as a dragon and a half-deity to become a human's mount. This was simply too ironic. Amolin? Upon sensing Amolin's gaze, Thaniel felt incredibly ashamed and wished he could bury his head in the sand. However, he had no regrets. Compared to his life, what were freedom and dignity? Menglay hopped onto Thaniel's wide, fleshy back and ordered, "Let's go. Bring me to the other remaining half-deities." Master, what do you mean?" Thaniel was slightly taken aback. "Haven't all the elders been killed by you? Are you trying to take advantage of how unlearned I am?" Meng Lei sneered. "I have indeed killed 7 half-deities just now, but 3 of them haven't died. They have other divine incarnations existing, don't they?" Thaniel's countenance changed slightly at his words. "Remember your position, Thaniel. You're no longer a half-deity of the dragons." Meng Lei said dispassionately, "Rather, you're now my mount. Do you need me to explain what a mount means?" "And no." Thaniel lowered his head fearfully. "Since it isn't necessary, then let's go and find those 3 that got away. If they manage to get away, I'll skin you," Meng Lei barked coldly. "Yes, master." Thaniel didn't dare to dally, and he flapped his wings as he flew toward those 3 half-deities' islands. "Must you really kill them all, Meng Lei?" shouted Amelin. "Elder Amelin, had I not been strong enough, would the Dragon Island half-deities have spared my life today?" Upon hearing his reply, Amelin froze at once. "You're too slow, Thaniel. Speed up. Go forth." Had there not been any system notifications, Meng Lei would highly likely have been duped. Unfortunately, he had the system. Therefore, he had noticed that he had only received 4 notifications despite having killed 7 half-deities. It was easy to tell from this that 3 of the half-deities among the 7 had other divine incarnations existing. Thus, they hadn't completely died yet. On top of that, Meng Lei also knew who they were: the Earth, Blue, and Tempest Colossal Dragons, respectively. Meng Lei didn't intend on sparing any of these fellows. As they say, if one doesn't eradicate the source of the problem, they will resurge. To minimize possible problems in the future, it was best that he wiped them all out. However, the unfortunate thing was that no matter how fast Meng Lei tried to move, he nonetheless only managed to slay the Blue Dragon and the Earth Dragon. The Tempest Colossal Dragon had long since fled into the distance and vanished without a trace. In fact, it had even taken away all of its treasures in its den, leaving not even a strand of hair for Meng Lei. "It fled pretty quickly, huh?" Meng Lei gazed at the empty cave and said, "You'd better hope you don't run into me in the future." "Where do we go next, master?" asked Thaniel carefully, lest Meng Lei vent his fury on him. "To the half-deities' dens." A gleam flashed past Meng Lei's eyes. The dragons loved glittering objects. Therefore, every colossal dragon was a tycoon, and every colossal dragon's den was a great collection of treasures. And the truth was indeed so. Goblin, the golden colossal dragon's den, provided Meng Lei with a total of 360,000 laws of nature origin crystals. The green, earth, thunder, blue, and frost colossal dragons brought Meng Lei a hefty total amount of 1.17 million laws of nature origin crystals. Meng Lei's wealth had reached an astonishing 2,317,572 laws of nature origin crystals. 2.31 million laws of nature origin crystals. When converted into gold coins, that would make it 23 trillion gold coins. 23 trillion. Now, that was pretty dramatic. However, Meng Lei wasn't really that happy. What could this bit of wealth achieve? Redeem 231 divinity crystals worth of power of divinity? Or raise his wood-earth laws of nature assimilation rate by 23%? It was just a drop in the ocean. "I'm still very poor." Meng Lei couldn't help but lament wistfully. The corners of Thaniel's lips spasmed upon hearing his proclamation, and he felt the urge to jump up and give Meng Lei a couple of hammer smashes. "You've just cleaned out 6 half-deities' dens and robbed them of their lifetime's worth of assets, yet you still complain about being poor? And moan and groan so incessantly? Damn you and your poverty. Goddamn it. Do you know I'm so jealous that I'm close to becoming beyond recognition? Oh right, aren't there supposed to be 9 half-deities on Dragon Island?" Meng Lei seemed to recall something. Other than Elder Amelin and the Tempest Colossal Dragon that got away, there should be 7 other half-deities, right? 7 half-deities should correspond to 7 dens. But I've only cleaned out 6. Thaniel felt his anus squeezing tight at once. Meng Lei turned his gaze to Thaniel underneath him and asked, "So, Where did the last den go? Master. Thaniel gave him a smile that looked worse than a crying face and replied, The last den belongs to me, so it's yours. Didn't I say? There are clearly 7 half-deities, so why would there only be 6 dens? Realization dawned upon Meng Lei, and a look of, so that's it, no wonder, appeared on his face. Yes, master, replied Thaniel carefully. Meng Lei was very considerate. He said, Since that den is yours, then I won't clean it out anymore. But what makes me curious is, comparing yours to goblins, whose den has more treasures. As someone who had already achieved half-deification 30,000 years ago, Grandmaster Goblin's savings naturally aren't something that mine can compare with, replied Thaniel truthfully. What about in comparison to the other half-deities? Asked Meng Lei. I have a bit more than them, replied Thaniel honestly. I didn't expect you to be such a tycoon. I really couldn't tell. Speaking of which, though, what do you want that many treasures for? Meng Lei was awfully puzzled. You don't bring them with you when you come to this world, and neither can you bring them with you when you leave this world. Should someone accidentally jab you to death one day with a spear, wouldn't it be a shame for all that treasure? Having lived so long, Thaniel had already become an incredibly shrewd one. How could he possibly not detect the thinly veiled threat in Meng Lei's words? He said with a crestfallen expression, Say no more, master. I'm willing to offer up my den. What did you say? Offer up your den. Meng Lei waved him off incessantly. How would that do? Those are assets that you've accumulated for a lifetime. How can I bring myself to take it? We mustn't do that. No, we mustn't. Thaniel was close to tears. Just take it, master. Considering my current position, I won't be able to use all those assets anymore in the future anyway. A reluctant Meng Lei replied, Oh, you shouldn't have. But what you've said makes sense, too. Since you've become my mount, you'll have to roam the world with me from now on. It certainly isn't very safe to leave those treasures on Dragon Island. Damn you and your lack of safety. Thaniel might be verbally respectful, but his heart was bleeding. Those were his life savings, yet they were all gone just like that. Although Thaniel's den couldn't match up to goblins, it was nonetheless still a place filled with magnificence and grandeur, and was incredibly extravagant. After taking inventory of the assets, they brought Meng Lei a large sum of 280,000 laws of nature origin crystals. It was only after he had fully cleaned the den out that Meng Lei finally swaggered out of the den. Thaniel hurriedly came forward and asked, Master, you've taken them all? Yes. Meng Lei nodded slightly. We're leaving, Thaniel. Go in and take one last look at your den. I'll pass. I have a weak heart, replied Thaniel with a wry smile. Look at that good-for-nothing demeanor of yours. Meng Lei rolled his eyes. Isn't it just a few treasures? Do you need to be that petty? Then, he took out a divine core and asked dispassionately, Do you know what this is? A divine core. A huge jolt went through Thaniel's dragon body. Good that you recognize it. Meng Lei bragged. I have an abundance of these things. I pop them like candy every day. Master, that's a divine core. Thaniel trembled all over as his eyes bore into the divine core in Meng Lei's hand. His eyes were filled with desire, greed, envy. It's just a lesser deity's divine core. Meng Lei patted Thaniel on the head and said, Do your best in the future, and you can take your pick from among intermediate deities and higher deities' divine cores. Are you serious, master? Thaniel's voice was trembling. His rationality told him that Meng Lei was just bluffing, but a hint of longing in his heart and the beautiful imagery that Meng Lei had conjured couldn't help but bewitch him. Intermediate deities. Higher deities. He was just a half-deity that had just manifested his divine core. Even a lesser deity's position was currently a far way off from him, let alone becoming an intermediate deity or a higher deity. Or rather, it was basically impossible. To become a lesser deity, one must first become a true god. To become a true god, one must first establish a divine nation. And to establish a divine nation, one needed vast amounts of power of divinity. Where did power of divinity come from? It was a matter of detailed, intricate work where one accumulated it bit by bit. Thaniel himself didn't have any confidence as to whether he could save up enough power of divinity to establish a divine nation while he was still alive. Therefore, to Thaniel, even a lesser deity's position was one that was extremely distant and an extravagant wish. But things were different with a ready-made divine core. Once he assimilated it, he would become a lesser deity right away. It was faster by not just 100 times or 10,000 times. Yes, of course, Meng Lei promised confidently. With this promise of yours, I, Thaniel, will die without regrets even if I have to work myself to the bones for you, Master. As an infatuated Thaniel gazed at the divine core, he said, "You may not know this, but actually by the time one reaches a half-deity's level like ours, there's no longer much longing for wealth anymore. But ordinary colossal dragons are different. They are the most passionate about collecting treasures and accumulating their wealth. Therefore, Dragon Island's richest ones aren't the half-deities like the few of us, but those ordinary colossal dragons. They are the true hidden tycoons. 10 ordinary colossal dragons' assets, when put together, could rival a half-deity's. How many ordinary colossal dragons are there on Dragon Island? Hundreds, even up to 1,000. Dead Soul's half-deity. The wealth of an ordinary colossal dragon would definitely be less than that of a half-deity. But what about 100 of them? 10,000 of them? 10,000 of them? The answer was clear. With Thaniel, the traitor of dragons, leading the way, Meng Lei became a devil for once. Loot them all, grab them all, take them all. Loot the dragon nest. Grab all their wealth. Take all their treasures. After quite a while of looting, Meng Lei's wealth had surged to 13.57 million laws of nature origin crystals. That was an astonishing figure, while there were also countless treasures from the loot. It would be no exaggeration to say that this trip to Dragon Island made Meng Lei rich suddenly, making him feel very pleased. With a good mood, he would naturally be easier to talk to. Surely enough, Meng Lei accepted Thaniel's proposal without any hesitation to spare the colossal dragons' lives. Meng Lei left some space in the Tower of Time specifically for these colossal dragons to live in. Yeep, I'll just breed them like pigs. Meng Lei even thought of placing the Tower of Time at the capital after building his own empire, after which talents could be allowed to enter and practice, letting these arrogant dragons have a taste of being at the mercy of others and become the hunted ones. Where do we go next, Master? Thaniel gazed at the now empty Dragon Island, not knowing whether he should cry or laugh at the circumstances. He did not want his species to be exterminated, not to mention being bred like pigs. Do you know where the dragon graves are? Meng Lei asked all of a sudden. The dragon graves? Thaniel's expression changed. Master, you're not going to leave the dragon graves alone? The dragon cemetery is a forbidden place of the dragons where we bury the dead. What were you thinking? Meng Lei snorted slightly and carried on. I'm only going there to worship an elder. That's fine. That's fine. Thaniel was relieved, and he flapped his wings to bring Meng Lei towards the dragon graves. The dragon graves were also situated on an island. On the island, stone mountains towered above with bizarre rock formations below. Among the stone forest stood gravestones with colossal dragons buried beneath one after the other. With his divine cognition covering across the entire island, Meng Lei began his search. After quite a while, Old President's tombstone could still not be found. Meng Lei frowned. Elder Amelin had said that she would bury OL President in the dragon graves. But why were there no signs of his tomb? I need an explanation. Meng Lei found Amelin, though the answer he got left him in shock. You're saying OL President isn't dead? Big Brother's soul jade is still intact, so he should still be alive. Amelin took out a blood-colored jade and continued with a dash of sorrow in her eyes. When dragons are born, a soul jade will be made. When the jade is fine, the dragon is alive. When the jade breaks, the dragon is dead. All this time, I have held on to Big Brother's soul jade, never broken for these 20,000 years. So I have always believed that Big Brother isn't dead yet. Amelin's tears welled up. Even though he perished together with the Tree of Life last time out in the Lost Continent, his soul jade never broke. So I'm certain Big Brother isn't dead. Not dead. Well, President is not dead. That is great. That is so great. Meng Lei became incoherent with excitement. Since he isn't dead, then where is he? Didn't he perish together with the tree of life? In my opinion, there should be two possibilities. Amelin said quietly, Big Brother either had other incarnations, or he's still sealed in your divine weapon. God-slaying spear? Meng Lei took out his God-slaying spear and checked with his divine cognition. However, after a round of inspection, nothing could be found. OL President isn't inside the God-slaying spear. Meng Lei was utterly disappointed. Then there is only one possibility, Amelin said. Big Brother had other incarnations. Other incarnations? Meng Lei frowned. Since there are other incarnations, why didn't he come back and look for you? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know, Amelin said with a bitter smile. OL President. Meng Lei clenched his fists. No matter where he is, I will find him. If you can find him, please tell him that I'm waiting for him, please. Amelin wiped her tears. Definitely. Meng Lei nodded when a night owl-like voice echoed. You ugly lizards. Wait till I come out and turn all of you into the undead, and I'll burn your souls with divine fire. Hoo. Burn in eternal flames, and you'll neither live nor die. What was that sound? Meng Lei's brows knitted together slightly. The sound came from underwater below the island. To be exact, it was not a sound, it was actually an aura from divine cognition. Master. This was the sound of an ancient evil fiend, Pohaman. Thaniel replied with respect. Evil ancient fiend Pohaman? A shrewd glint flashed across Meng Lei's eyes as he asked with great interest, Tell me more. Speaking of Pohaman, it all started 50,000 years ago. Thaniel spoke faintly. 50,000 years ago, we dragons ruled the heavens' vault continent. We are the only masters of this world. Even the beast people, fairies, titans of the current age could only be holed up in their homelands and live off the breath of us. Moreover, the far northern wastelands, fairy woods, and titan highlands of the three empires were our backyard. Thaniel's eyes were brimming with pride. The heavens' vault continent was truly the Colossal Dragons continent. Unfortunately, Thaniel let out a wry laugh. As the dragon god left the heavens' vault continent along with his high-end combat power, our dragon god empire was in jeopardy. The beast people holed up in the beast people imperial courts, the fairies concealed in the goddess lakeside, the titans hidden in the Sierra Mountains, and other intelligent species like goblins, dwarfs, trolls all appeared. Even all sorts of fiends and devils burst into the scene. Virtually overnight, our dragon god empire disintegrated. Not only did we lose a large tract of territories, but our elites suffered heavy casualties too. This was when the ancient evil fiend, Pohaman, appeared. As a dead soul's half-deity, Pohaman's destructive powers were no less than of the three empires. Dead soul's half-deity? Meng Lei's eyes lit up. Yes, dead soul's half-deity. Thaniel nodded slightly. The evil Pohaman, though he only had a staff, and he could cast dead soul's magic to summon countless evil undead from the underworld. The undead army was formidable and dreadful. Any living things would be slaughtered wherever they went and turned into dead souls by Pohaman. In short, Pohaman made us suffer heavy losses. The Empire had to send out several half-deities to suppress and seal him away. So the dead soul's half-deity is sealed here? Meng Lei was very interested. Yes, Master, replied Thaniel. Let's go down and take a look. Master, isn't that a bad idea? Thaniel objected hurriedly. Pohaman is very evil. Meng Lei glanced at him as he asked in reply, Evil? Is he as evil as me? Thaniel shut up instantly. Evil? Pohaman would be as innocent as a newborn baby compared to you. Get down then. Meng Lei flew down below the dragon graves. Thaniel had no choice but to lead the way in front. In a short while, both of them went into the sea and saw a brightly lit cave. The cave reflected a soft milky halo, emitting fluttering light movements. Let's head over and take a look. Meng Lei teleported before the entrance and saw a cave that was bright as day. Its walls were embedded with milk-white light elemental crystals. There was an altar in the middle of the cave. On the altar stood 10 pillars, and each of them was crafted using light elemental crystals. They were connected to 10 metal chains, which were all linked to a person in the middle. He was thin as sticks, with hair disheveled. Other than a layer of dry, wrinkled skin, there was no excess flesh, just like a mere bag of bones. The 10 chains went through his arms, ribs, belly, legs, shoulder blades, pinning him into the middle of the altar alive. He could neither sit nor lay on the floor. He could only stand there. That was worse than being dead. However, these were nothing compared to the critical chain right between his eyes. This chain locked his divine spirit, which prevented him from using his power of divinity, incapacitating him completely disabled. Hoot, hoot, hoot. Someone actually came here. How rare, very rare. As if sensing Meng Lei's arrival, the skeleton raised his head slowly. Through the messy hair extending all the way to the floor, a pair of green eyes could be seen. They were like the frightening eyes of a wolf. Dead Soul's half-deity? Pohaman? Meng Lei sized up the skeleton on the altar. You have no scent of those nasty lizards on you. Who are you? How did you appear here? The skeleton glared with those green eyes and spoke in a raucous voice like an owl. If you're willing, I can be your savior, Meng Lei said leisurely. Save me? Who do you think you are? Pohaman paused before he laughed out loud. If that smelly lizard behind you had said that, I would have believed it. As for you, Pohaman, you evil Dead Soul's half-deity, you better watch your tone. Daniel responded angrily. Standing before you is my great master, His Highness Meng Lei. If you offend him again, I won't show any mercy. Master! Pohaman was stunned and glanced at Daniel before turning his green eyes toward Meng Lei, re-examining him. This fetid lizard is one of the few half-deities of Dragon Island. How did you subdue him? Took out other half-deities, so he naturally submitted to me. Meng Lei smiled faintly. Now answer me. Do you want to get out? You killed the rest of the half-deity dragons? Pohaman was taken aback, shaking his head repeatedly. No. This can't be possible. These damned stinking lizards might be despicable and on the decline, but to kill them? Absolutely no way. Tell him the truth. Meng Lei looked at Daniel. Daniel gave a wry smile and told him of Meng Lei's incredible dragon-slaying feat. Honestly, Pohaman was dumbfounded. Let me ask you one last time. Do you want to get out? Meng Lei was getting impatient. You're really willing to let me go? Pohaman stared at Meng Lei. Of course. And what do I have to offer? Your loyalty. Loyalty. In fact, he had offered up his divine spirit origin energy with nary any hesitation, making the process unexpectedly quick. Meng Lei had initially thought that he'd have to go through a lengthy coercion-cum-wheedling process before he could subdue the Dead Soul's half-deity. After all, he was an evil ancient fiend and a Dead Soul's half-deity. So how would he possibly submit to him that easily? Snap! Snap! The god-slaying spear jabbed forward repeatedly, easily breaking the 10 chains shackling Pohaman. Having regained his freedom, Pohaman burst into loud, excited laughter as he exclaimed, "Kakik! I'm finally out." It was just a shame that his laughter didn't hold even a tinge of might. Instead, it sounded incredibly eerie, as if it were the wailing of vengeful spirits from hell. Eerie, sinister, and terrifying, it sounded awfully creepy. "Let's go," said Meng Lei dispassionately. Then, he turned and started to walk toward the exit. Daniel hastily followed after him as he maintained a certain distance from Pohaman. He simply couldn't help but feel unsafe being in the same space as that evil ancient fiend. "Yes, my honorable master, Kiki." Pohaman cackled strangely and followed Meng Lei and Daniel out of the cave. At this moment, an 8th-grade magical beast, the bloodthirsty violent shark, happened to swim over. At the sight of it, Pohaman made a grabbing motion. Bam! A huge verdant green withered claw appeared out of thin air and grabbed the bloodthirsty violent shark toward him, upon which Pohaman immediately opened his mouth and sucked forcefully. Lush green life essence drifted out of the bloodthirsty violent shark and was absorbed into Pohaman's mouth. The bloodthirsty violent shark started to visibly dry and shrivel up. A few moments later, it had turned into a piece of dehydrated skin. Turning one's gaze back to Pahaman, they would see that his dry, withered skin had plumped up a fair bit and gained a hint of rosiness. Kakik, the taste of blood truly makes one nostalgic. Pahaman licked his lips in such high spirits that he raised his head and burst into loud, raucous laughter. Master, that fiend is too evil. Thaniel's voice shook as he shivered and shuddered, totally creeped out. Is that dead soul's magic? Meng Lei was unaffected. Instead, he even developed a keen interest in dead soul's magic. Pahaman replied with a strange laugh. Kiki, master, I can teach you dead soul's magic if you wish to learn it. We can look into it a little when we have some spare time, said Meng Lei with a slight smile. It's rare to see someone interested in dead soul's magic. On top of that, he's even my master, Pahaman remarked as he cackled. Then he started on his frenzied, devouring feast. None of the marine magical beasts they encountered along the way were spared. He himself also began to plump up rapidly. By the time they were out of the bottom of the ocean, he looked like a completely different person. A strong, ample, well-built body, crystal-clear skin, glossy jet-black hair. Which part of that was a skeleton from the bottom of the ocean? It was clearly a graceful and gentlemanly middle-aged noble. If it hadn't been for the fact that they had exited the bottom of the ocean together, even Meng Lei and Thaniel wouldn't have quite dared to believe their eyes. Was that guy really Pahaman? A smiling Meng Lei complimented. That looks a lot more pleasant to the eye now. Pahaman was the picture of a mild-mannered and refined gentleman, as he did a graceful noble's bow in response. You may not know this, master, but before I'd begun to cultivate dead soul's magic, I was a human king. Unfortunately, my country was destroyed later on. For the sake of seeking revenge on the dragons, I had no choice but to switch to cultivating dead soul's magic and ended up a monster that was neither human nor ghost. At this point, Pahaman cast a glance at Thaniel. His eyes carried a look of malice, causing Thaniel to tense up all the way to his anus and become all creeped out. Little did I think that you'd have gone through something like that. That's surprising, Meng Lei said with a laugh. I happen to have just destroyed the dragons and am intending to take over Dragon God Empire. Since you're experienced in this aspect, you should be able to be of assistance to me, right? Kiki, I'm glad to offer my services to you, master. Pahaman was awfully excited. Don't worry, master. I had reigned for over 40 years back then, so I have great experience in governance. I should be able to provide you with some suggestions. I hope so. A gratified Meng Lei nodded. He had previously been troubled over Dragon God Empire's matter. After all, the dragons were gone, and he had slaughtered all the court officials. A moment of carelessness and the juggernaut that was Dragon God Empire might just collapse any time. When that happened, chaos ensuing would be nigh impossible to avoid. The ones to suffer would still end up being the common people. This was something that Meng Lei didn't wish to see. As such, how he should go about taking over Dragon God Empire peacefully while avoiding strife was something that Meng Lei needed to think about. If possible, he would also like to spread his faith along the way and get the Empire's citizens to believe in him. That would be even more ideal. However, Meng Lei knew that this would be an extremely difficult task. Taking control of the Empire wasn't that bad. The level of difficulty wasn't very high. What was difficult was to spread faith. Having been established for over 40,000 years, Dragon God Empire's faith in the Dragon God had long since become ingrained and deep-rooted. Getting the citizens to abandon their faith in the Dragon God and switch over to worshipping him was definitely no easy task. Meng Lei had also considered this problem previously. He had thought of a few ideas, but he ultimately still found them too unreliable. Now that he had taken Pahaman in, he could, however, discuss this with him. That old fiend had once been a king, as well as even an evil god. Surely he could provide some assistance in that respect? Where do we go next, master? At the sight of Pahaman gaining Meng Lei's trust so quickly, and even vaguely seemed as if he'd be given great responsibilities, Thaniel panicked somewhat. He'd clearly been the one that had submitted to their master first, so why was that fiend edging him out now? After a moment of consideration, Meng Lei replied, "Let's go to the Imperial City." "All right, master." After responding, Thaniel flapped his wings and flew toward Dragon Island's exit. Upon departing Dragon Island, as Pahaman overlooked all the sights outside, he became so worked up that scalding tears filled his eyes, and he fell to his knees before Meng Lei. "I've finally seen the light of day again after being sealed for 50,000 years. I am grateful to my great, noble master. Thank you for saving my life. Isn't that reflex arc of yours a little too slow? Why didn't I see you thanking me when I saved you from that cave just now?" Meng Lei grumbled inwardly, though outwardly. He said, "Congratulations on regaining your freedom, Pahaman." "Thank you. Thank you, master." Pahaman cried tears of joy as he sniffed the air intensely, an expression of intoxication all over his face. "This is the smell of heaven's vault continent. It's truly too wonderful and too nostalgic. Let's go." Meng Lei patted Thaniel on the back. "Yes, master." Then Thaniel flew toward the Imperial City. "Pahaman, I'd like to take control of Dragon God Empire. Do you have any suggestions? I've been sealed for too long, master. Therefore, I'm not very clear on Dragon God Empire's current situation. May I trouble master to give me a simple explanation first?" "All right." Little did I think that Dragon God Empire would still be this much of a loser even after 50,000 years have gone by. Then, an emotional Pahaman said, "Master, if you wish to take control of Dragon God Empire, you can do it in 4 steps. 4 steps? Tell me about it," replied Meng Lei with great interest. "The first step is to take control of the Empire's court administration. Now that the dragons' high-end combat power have all been wiped out by Master, the remaining dragons are not much of a threat anymore. The matter of highest priority now is to take control of court administration and control the steering rights of the giant ship that is Dragon God Empire, so as to stabilize the overall situation and prevent chaos from ensuing." "That makes sense. Go on," Meng Lei commented with a nod. "You can't take control of court administration if no one's there," Pahaman asked with a sinister smile. "Master, you previously mentioned that you've slaughtered all the court officials, both civil and martial, but I don't believe that. If my guess is right, you've actually only killed the high-ranking or important officials, right?" "I think so." Meng Lei's brows furrowed slightly. "That has to be it." Pahaman snickered and said, "Officials qualified to enter the conference hall to discuss state affairs are typically either the chief executives or their deputies from each department. Officials whose positions are too low aren't qualified to step into the conference hall. Therefore, I dare make a bold guess that all you've killed are just the high-ranking officials and those in important positions. As for the lower-level officials and civil servants in minor positions, they should all be well and alive. These people are the key to us taking control of Dragon God Empire. Go on. As long as you can take control of them, it would be tantamount to you taking control of Dragon God Empire's court. And there's nothing more suitable to control them than my dead soul's magic." Pahaman gave him a sinister smile as a bloodthirsty look came over his countenance. At the sight of his visage, Meng Lei knew his intentions at once. It's better to take a gentler approach to humans who are willing to submit. As for the stubborn ones and the dragon people nobles, you can do as you see fit. "Don't worry, master. I know what I should do." Pahaman patted his chest as he reassured him again. "Tell me about the second and third steps." "The second step is to promote and elevate the human elites into higher positions and wipe out the colossal dragon nobles," Pahaman went on. "Once you've taken control of the court, it'll be tantamount to you having taken control of the wagging tongues in the empire. At this point, Master can alter the country's laws and regulations and dismiss the colossal dragon nobles from position. Those that refuse to accept the changes are all to be killed. Whoever dares to revolt are also to be killed. Kill them all, and let the blood flow. When that happens, we'll see who still dares go against Master. Now that the dragons have lost their half-deities, I believe that a group of ordinary colossal dragons can't amount to much at all. The third step is to deal with the affiliated kingdoms at the borders." As Thaniel listened to Meng Lei and Pahaman's conversation as they made plans to take over Dragon God Empire, He felt an infinite amount of grief and sorrow. Should they really carry out whatever Behemoth had said, the entire Dragon God Empire would completely change hands. There would no longer be any place in Dragon God Empire for the Colossal Dragons. Dragon God Empire would completely become dominated by humans. With the humans' reproduction rate, who would still remember the dragons after dozens or 100 years? An alarmed and fearful Thanil wondered, will the dragons die out? Meng Lei's magic communication device suddenly rang at this point. Is President Fred? After a moment of hesitation, Meng Lei chose to pick up the call. Meng Lei. President Fred had a complex look on his face. President. Meng Lei responded with a smile, just like always. Where are you now, Meng Lei? Asked President Fred in a low voice. I've just left Dragon Island and am about to return to the Imperial City, replied Meng Lei truthfully. In that case, you've already... At once, the look on President Fred's countenance changed, and his voice shook somewhat. Out of the 9 dragon half-deities, aside from Elder Amolin and the Tempest Colossal Dragon that got away, the other 7 half-deities have all died. The ordinary dragons have also been wiped out. Meng Lei respected President Fred, so he didn't wish to deceive him in matters like this. Neither was there any need for him to. He believed that the news would spread in no time. It's over. It's all over for the dragons. President Fred staggered as if his soul had left him. He said, I've imagined various outcomes, but never did I ever think that the outcome would be one like this. Out of the 9 dragon half-deities, you've actually slain 7. Without the half-deities' protection, the dragon's destruction has already become destined. In fact, the dragons no longer have the power to control the entire empire anymore. Fred let out wry laugh after wry laughs. Forget it. Forget it. Now that it has come to this, what more can I say? Meng Lei, what do you intend to do next? What are you going to do about each kingdom's royalty? That's probably what the Fire Dragon King, Flit the 66th, got you to ask, right? After a long silence, Meng Lei finally slowly answered, President, on your account, I can look the other way and allow each kingdom's royalty to take up permanent residency on the Lost Continent. If they are willing, the Lost Continent can become their abode. We'll call it New Dragon Island. Dragon Island. Smack. Flit the 66th broke the imperial desk in front of him with a smack. His eyes were close to spitting fire. Meng Lei is going too far. Fred could only give a wry smile, as did the Fighting Dragon Academy president and the others. Going too far? Indeed, Meng Lei certainly was. But what could he do about him? He had killed even the 7 half-deity grandmasters on Dragon Island, as well as the Empire's emperor, let alone him, Flit the 66th. Heaven's Vault Continent was ultimately a place where the strong was revered. Whoever was stronger would hold more influence. This was the eternally unchanging truth. Didn't the dragons bully and humiliate the humans all these years simply because they were stronger than them? Is there no chance of things turning for the better at all? After his fit of fury, Flit the 66th gradually regained his composure. He was filled with indignation as he gazed at all the court officials and Saint Domains in the hall. All the court officials in the hall were silent, as were the Saint Domains. Everyone, do think of something. Flit the 66th started to bellow furiously. Am I really supposed to abdicate the throne and move to that godforsaken lost continent? All the officials were as quiet as a mouse. At last, President Fred stepped forward and said with a wry smile, Your Majesty, we cannot overcome this situation at the moment. A head-on collision definitely won't work. However, Meng Lei is someone that bears old friendships in mind and cherishes relationships. You can tackle it from this angle instead. Bears old friendships in mind? Cherishes relationships? As a half-deity, Thanil's speed was no joke. In just a short half an hour, he'd flown back to the Dragon God Empire Imperial City. The current Imperial City was already showing initial signs of impending chaos. Large numbers of eunuchs and palace maidservants fled from the palace while the members of royalty, the nobles, and the officials behaved as if a great enemy was looming over them. This caused fear and unease among the general public that didn't know what was going on. Meng Lei and the other two stood above the imperial city and personally witnessed everything. A frowning Meng Lei asked, "What do you make of this, Pahaman? It's better that it's a little chaotic. Otherwise, how would a new administration come about? If chaos doesn't break out, it'll be hard to change their faith." Pahaman gave him a sinister smile and said, "If Master trusts me, why don't you leave this matter to me? A month later, I'll hand a stable imperial city back to Master. All right, I'll leave this to you." Meng Lei nodded slightly as he then said, "Thaniel can act as your deputy. The two of you can handle this together. Master, I'd better just follow you instead." At the sound of that, Thaniel immediately shook his head vehemently. He didn't want to go too near to that evil ancient fiend. It was too dangerous. "You're a half-deity of the dragons. You're the most suited to taking charge of handling these trivial matters." Meng Lei brooked no dispute and waved him off. "Yes, Master," replied Thaniel with a woebegone expression. "Elder Thaniel, I believe that we'll be able to form a very pleasant working relationship." Pahaman gave him a sinister smile, causing goosebumps to rise all over Thaniel. How he wished he could flee right away. "The two of you may go." After dismissing the pair, Meng Lei found a hall in the imperial palace grounds and went into seclusion with peace of mind. Things like taking control of the court were beyond him. Neither could he be bothered to waste any energy on it. Thus, he decided to might as well just leave it to the professionals. Being an absentee manager was pretty good, too. After all, everything was within his control. Now that the dragon half-deities are dead, the native dragons on Heaven's Vault continent won't really be able to cause much trouble. The upcoming threats will highly likely come from two areas, the Dragon God and the other three major empires. Meng Lei rested on his side on the imperial couch meant for the emperor's use and mused over the current situation. The importance of the power of faith to deities is obvious on its own. The Dragon God will never give up the Dragon God Empire, his power of faith domain, that easily. It boils down to how he intends to move. The three major empires, too. They likely won't pass up such a good opportunity and watch as I gain complete control over Dragon God Empire. Therefore, the enemies I'll have to face next will be even stronger, and the situation even graver. Power. I still need to boost my power further. Only with power will I not need to fear anything. Meng Lei looked at his stats interface. His wealth, which amounted to as much as 13.57 million laws of nature origin crystals, was the biggest reward he had reaped from his trip to Dragon Island this time. I can't buy credit for my divine body and my divine spirit anymore, whereas the power of divinity and comprehension of fusion laws of nature are too expensive. Let's just continue with the limitless pickups then. If 100 times doesn't work, then I'll do it 1,000 times. I simply don't believe that I can't get anything good. Meng Lei ordered. System. 100 limitless pickups. Ding. Assimilation successful. You have obtained 10 dragon blood potions. Ding. Assimilation successful. You have obtained an earth elemental magic scroll. Ding. Assimilation successful. The 100 limitless pickup attempts ended in the blink of an eye, yet it didn't manage to pick up anything satisfactory. System. Another 100 times. Ding. Assimilation successful. I don't believe this. Again. Trash. They are all trash. You lousy system. Can you be any more of a scam than this? Damn it. Another 1,000 times. This time Meng Lei went all out. 1,000 laws of nature origin crystals? Piece of cake. At once, system notifications started to ring out constantly. Ding. Assimilation successful. You have obtained the flat sculpting style stone statue. Waking up. Ding. Assimilation successful. You have obtained Babe the God-slaying rat straw hat. What the F*** CK. I was all worked up for nothing. It's just a lousy straw hat. Ding. Assimilation successful. You have obtained a tree of vitality sapling. A tree of vitality sapling? With a thought, a small 1-meter tall tree sapling immediately appeared on his palm. Crystal clear and lush. It gave off a rich sense of life and vitality all over. Not bad. Then, Meng Lei planted the Tree of Vitality sapling on the Tower of Time's 95th level. At the same time, he also set up a magical energy-gathering magic circle to collect the wood elements in the surroundings before he left. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained 3 dragon bone herbs. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a fusion laws of nature fragment. Will you assimilate it? Another fusion laws of nature fragment? Never mind. Let's just assimilate it. It's thunder ice fusion laws of nature this time. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a divine core. Will you assimilate it? Another divine core? Meng Lei perked up again, and with a flip of his right hand, a divine core appeared on his palm. It was a dark elemental divine core that was pitch black in color all over and emanated strong, surging dark elemental power of divinity. The power of divinity energy fluctuations on this are about the same as those on the water elemental one. It's likely also a lesser deity's divine core. What a shame that I can't assimilate it. It's so tempting. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a fusion laws of nature fragment. Will you assimilate it? Assimilate it. This time it's light water fusion laws of nature. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained a crystallized divine spirit extract. A crystallized divine spirit extract? What's that? A golden rhombus-shaped crystal roughly the size of an infant's fist appeared on Meng Lei's palm. Just a glance at it was enough to turn Meng Lei dizzy. It was as if his entire spirit had been lured into the crystal. Dodola. What's a crystallized divine spirit extract? Meng Lei had no choice but to rouse the fast-asleep Dodola from its slumber. Don't you know that disturbing someone's sleep is very rude and immoral behavior? Despite being extremely displeased with Meng Lei's actions, Dodola nevertheless still provided him with an answer. A crystallized divine spirit extract is the crystallized form of a divine spirit that has been extracted from a divine core and processed. Meng Lei asked, "Extracted from a divine core? What can this thing do?" Because it has gone through special processing, crystallized divine spirit extracts no longer contain the dead deity's will, memories, divinity, laws of nature comprehension, and other information related to its original owner. Dodola said, "Therefore, crystallized divine spirit extracts are the purest and cleanest material form of a divine spirit, and is a treasure that can enhance one's divine spirit." Enhance one's divine spirit? Meng Lei's eyes lit up as he asked, "Are there any side effects?" "No, there aren't." "Got it. You can go back to sleep now." "Why are you suddenly asking about that?" "Nothing much. It's just a casual question. There's no use asking about that because it's impossible for you to get any crystallized divine spirit extracts anyway. That thing is ridiculously expensive. Even one that's processed from a lesser deity's divine core is worth tens of thousands of divinity crystals." A mumbling Dodola then went back to sleep. Impossible to get? Meng Lei was beside himself with joy as he gazed at the golden rhombus-shaped crystal sitting on his palm. Not only can it enhance my divine spirit, but it doesn't carry any side effects either. What was he waiting for, then? Assimilate. Buzz. At once, the crystallized divine spirit extract disappeared. At the same time, Meng Lei felt a strong, torrential, and icy aura gushing into his sea of consciousness and furiously strengthening his divine spirit. Boom! In the span of a few short breaths, his divine spirit had been enhanced by quite a few times. His mind became even more agile, and his consciousness even more alert right away. The range of his divine cognition became even wider, and the laws of nature became even clearer and more distinct. It feels so strong. The feeling of his divine spirit continuously strengthening was simply too wonderful. If it were possible, Meng Lei really wished that it could continue strengthening. Alas, there was a start and an end to everything. A brief moment later, everything came to an end and vanished. When Meng Lei opened his eyes and glanced at his stats interface, he couldn't help but be awfully comforted. Host, Meng Lei race. Human, contains god-slaying rat bloodline, 100%. Wealth, 13.57 million laws of nature origin crystals physical body constitution, Half-Deity, high-grade, spirit, Half-Deity, high-grade power of divinity. 0.1 Divinity crystal laws of nature. Wood-earth fusion, 0.1%. Metal-dark fusion, 0.1%. Thunder-ice fusion, 0.1%. Water-light fusion, 0.1%. Enhancing my divine spirit from elementary grade to high grade had required only a tiny, little crystallized divine spirit extract. Meng Lei couldn't help but marvel. This thing sure is good stuff. Here's hoping I can pick more up in the future. Oh right, Dodola once said that the level of difficulty in laws of nature assimilation is related to how strong one's divine spirit is. Now that my divine spirit has strengthened by so much, surely it has become much cheaper to buy credit for laws of nature assimilation now? Meng Lei promptly contacted the system. System, how much does it cost to raise my wood-earth fusion laws of nature assimilation rate by 1%? 10,000 laws of nature origin crystals. 10,000? Haha. Meng Lei was overjoyed. I was right. The cost has indeed lowered significantly. Previously, it had cost 100,000 laws of nature origin crystals to raise his wood-earth fusion laws of nature assimilation rate by 1%. But now, it required only 10,000 laws of nature origin crystals, making it only 10% of what it had previously cost. It had become so much cheaper. Little did I think that enhancing the divine spirit would actually bring such benefits. Say no more. We'll talk again after I've raised all 8 fusion laws of nature. Wood-earth, metal-dark, thunder-ice, and light-water. To 100%. Whoosh! His wealth instantly shrank by 4 million laws of nature origin crystals. The stats interface also underwent a change. Wealth, 9.57 million laws of nature origin crystals laws of nature. Wood-earth fusion, 100%. Metal-dark fusion, 100%. Thunder-ice fusion, 100%. Water-light fusion, 100%. Someday, I'll definitely be able to fuse all 10 types of laws of nature into one. Meng Lei was filled with confidence for the future. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained the succubus lace organza skirt. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained the skeleton soldier's will-o'-the-wisp. Ding! Assimilation successful. You have obtained the divine beast tricannon pig's carcass. A divine beast carcass? Rather taken aback, Meng Lei quickly brought out the divine beast carcass. Boom! It instantly blasted the hall apart. The grand, extravagant hall was instantly filled beyond its bursting point and blasted apart, implicating the other surrounding halls in the imperial palace, too. Dust and earth flew about as great explosions rang out. An enormous pig with a golden yellow mane appeared out of thin air amongst the halls in the imperial palace. Standing at 10,000 meters tall and measuring 100,000 feet long, its huge ears were like great tents that blotted out the sky and its savage fangs like iron spikes. The most amazing thing was that a terrifying wave of divine power was emanating from the enormous pig and pounding against the hearts of the imperial city's residents. Boom! Everyone felt incredibly unwell. It was as if their hearts were clenched tightly in someone else's hand. Oh, dragon god above! What exactly is happening? Fear and trepidation filled their hearts, making them alarmed and uneasy. Divine power! This is divine power! It's coming from the imperial palace. Pohaman and Thaniel's countenances, who were in the midst of their tasks, changed drastically, and they quickly flew toward the imperial palace. That's... The two of them gasped. What fearsome divine power! What an enormous body! That was definitely a deity-class magical beast. Oh, dragon god above! That's a divine beast! Oh, Lord of Hades! What have I just seen? The two half-deities were utterly stunned. Faye! Faye! The sound of someone spitting rang out, causing the two of them to look over in surprise. Then they saw Meng Lei climbing out of the ruins. He was covered in dust and dirt, so his appearance was in somewhat of a pathetic state. Master! Pohaman and Thaniel were dumbfounded. What the hell? To think the carcass of this tricannon pig, or whatever you call it, is so huge. What an error in judgment I've made. Meng Lei rose into the air and sized up the 10,000 feet long divine beast Carcass. Rather lost for words, he exclaimed, "What a huge pig! How long is that going to last me? My esteemed master, is this divine beast Carcass yours?" asked an astonished Pahaman and Thaniel, who had flown over to Meng Lei. "That's right. Didn't the price of pork go up recently? So I bought one to try the taste." Meng Lei nodded slightly. Then, he asked, "Do you want to bring some back and make some sausages or something?" We mustn't. This is a divine beast Carcass. How would we possibly dare to eye it?" The pair hastily waved in response. However, they could barely hide the longing and greed in their eyes. Divine beast meat, it was totally a great source of nourishment. Disregarding the taste, just the price alone was already beyond measure. If they could have even a piece of it, their strength would totally undergo rapid growth. "I can't finish it by myself, so you guys can have some too." A dimensional blade abruptly manifested and instantly cleaved down on the tricannon pig's tail with a wave. Clink! Sparks flew amidst sounds of metal colliding against each other. Yet the divine pig's tail actually stayed well and intact. "What the? It's that tough?" Meng Lei couldn't help but gasp. Then the god-slaying spear appeared in his hand, and he jabbed it at the pig. It was only then that the several hundred meters long pigtail suddenly broke at the base with a splurt. "Done!" Meng Lei retracted the god-slaying spear and said, "You can take the tail and use it for sausages." "Master, is that really all right?" The pair swallowed repeatedly. "Take it!" Meng Lei tossed the pigtail over. Then, he flew on top of the tricannon pig and began to ponder over where he should start eating it from. Owing to how hard and tough the pig's divine body was, it was hard for him to even start tackling it. "Thank you, my noble master." The pair gave up the pretentious act at the sight, and then with one person on each side, they picked up the pigtail and immediately ran off, lest Meng Lei went back on his word if they lagged behind for even a moment. As they ran, Meng Lei's voice also traveled over from afar. "Don't just focus on eating the pork. Get the job done well, too. Yes. Seriously, those buffoons." The divine pork was indeed hard to tackle. The meat was extremely tender and pliable, making it extremely difficult to even slice it. The god-slaying spear was more suited to piercing, so it showed rather poor results at slicing the meat. Meng Lei tried various tools on it, but he couldn't even slice through the divine pig's skin. In the end, he picked up a random blood-colored machete, and then he actually sliced apart the tender pork with a single slash. "Is this knife that sharp?" Meng Lei was astonished. "If memory serves me right, this knife is something that I've only just picked up recently? System, what's the name of this knife?" "Dear host, this is the Abyss Blade Demon's companion machete," replied the system coldly. The Abyss Blade Demon's companion machete. Meng Lei was thrilled. He hadn't thought much of it when he had first picked it up and had thought it to be some kind of trash. Little did he know that it would turn out to be that sharp. He was the one that hadn't recognized it for what it was worth instead. What a good machete! Meng Lei was in a fantastic mood. With 1, 2, 3 cuts, he easily disemboweled the divine pig. Then he built a roasting rack, brought out condiments, and used a divine fire to cook and roast it. Even so, it still took him a long while before he finally managed to cook the divine pork thoroughly. "It smells great." Then, Meng Lei grabbed a slice of roast and stuffed it into his mouth, causing his saliva glands to go into overdrive because of the extraordinarily fresh and delectable meat. "Delicious! It's too delicious. To think it tastes this great. The texture of the divine pork in my mouth is so springy that every time I chew, it's as if the meat is bouncing in my mouth. It's simply too chewy." "No, it's not just chewy. There's also rich life essence in the meat. Overflowing life force energy is spreading into every part of my body. My whole body feels so warm and comfortable. There's only one word to describe this: beautiful." This was Meng Lei's first time eating such delicious roast, and he couldn't stop at all. The god-slaying rat's powerful digestion ability was perfectly exhibited at this moment. Meng Lei gobbled and chowed down on the food fervently, yet he simply didn't feel like he was full. Even after he had eaten so much pork that they amounted to quite a few times of his body weight, his six-pack abs still remained as is and didn't turn into one. It was only after he ate all the way from the morning till the night that Meng Lei finally stopped. Phew! That felt great. He burped and laid down on the Imperial Palace Square. As he rubbed his stomach, Meng Lei couldn't help but think of his food buddy, Sokka's the multi-armed behemoth. It's been quite a few days since I last saw that fellow. I wonder how it is and whether it's still alive? Should I head to the Lost Continent and pay it a visit? There isn't anything that I need to do at the moment anyway. The moment the thought occurred to him, Meng Lei kept the rest of the meat with a wave and teleported away. By the time he'd reappeared, he was already at the Dragon God Cathedral. "O great and noble Dragon God, please save your lowly children." The area in front of the Dragon God Cathedral was filled with worshippers that had come forth to pray. There were high-ranking officials and dragon people nobles, but what filled the place even more were ordinary humans. They knelt before the Dragon God statue, either kowtowing without restraint or praying piously. Every one of them was fearful and uneasy, as though doomsday had come. Meng Lei frowned slightly, though he didn't really find it that unusual. Turmoil inevitably led to fear and panic, which would then spread. The current imperial city was indeed currently shrouded in an uneasy and fearful atmosphere. In times of fear, worshippers naturally ran to the church. Such a reaction couldn't get any more normal. But what had displeased Meng Lei was the Dragon God Cathedral's pope. That old fogey was actually spreading talk of the devil's descent into the world, and had painted him as a wicked devil hailing from the deep abyss of hell, and was bringing disaster to the world. The cruel devil has descended. A terrifying demonic disaster shall sweep through the continent soon. I have seen the future that will soon arrive. Lives are plunged into great misery and suffering while the devil wreaks havoc. The colossal dragons fall. The nation is defeated, and our homes are lost. Corpses line the wilderness, and the lands are dyed in red for miles. Just as the devil wreaks havoc in the lands and the demonic disaster is about to destroy the continent, the great, noble dragon god descends. Bathed in a divine glow and holding a scepter, he rides a multicolored colossal dragon and supports the collapsing skyscraper that is Dragon God Empire. He fights back the impending desperate crisis and saves the living from great calamity. Enough with the bluffing! Meng Lei suddenly appeared and stared hostilely at the Pope, who was speaking with remarkable animation and expression. "Ah!" The Pope came to an abrupt stop as he stared at Meng Lei blankly. I'm your father." With an icy snort, Meng Lei directly formed a blood pact with the old bluffer and swindler. "From today onward, you're the first Pope of the Meng Lei Church. Remember this. The Dragon God is the true devil that's bringing disaster to the world while I am the Messiah." "Yes, my noble master." The Pope prostrated deeply at Meng Lei's feet, licking his stinky shoes as if he were licking honey. "Do your job well." Then, Meng Lei vanished after leaving behind a one-liner. The Pope got up, raised his arms, and declared aloud, "I made a mistake just now. The one that has descended is the great deity, Meng Lei." Oh, Meng Lei arrived at the lost continent once more. Compared to what it was like in the past, where 1,000 beasts roared and signs of life flourished, the current lost continent was completely desolate and almost frighteningly quiet. "Where's Sokka's?" Meng Lei's divine cognition spread into the surroundings. There was nowhere for anything within 100 miles of where he was to hide, and every detail reflected clearly within his mind. "He's not here." He immediately teleported to a spot 100 miles away. "Not here either." He teleported about another 10 times in succession. At last, Meng Lei found Sokka's at the Golden Ocean Bay. That fellow was currently lying on the shore fast asleep. An astonishing number of skeletal remains were piled up beside it, evidently leftovers from that fellow's meals. "Master, where are you? Sokka's misses you?" Sokka smacked his lips as it mumbled in its sleep every once in a while like a fool. "That guy!" Amused, Meng Lei quietly flew over to Sokka's and went right up to its ear. Then he bellowed, "Time to wake up, Sokka's. Roar." At once, Sokka's shuddered. all the fur on its body standing on end and its muscles tightly tensed. Evidently, it had received quite the shock. Ha ha ha! At the sight, Meng Lei doubled over and burst into boisterous laughter, laughing so hard that his stomach hurt. Boss! At the sound of his laughter, Sokka's turned and looked over, scalding tears filling its eyes at once. It pounced toward Meng Lei's feet and burst into loud sobs, crying like a giant baby. Where did you go, boss? I made a trip back home. Will you leave again? If you wish to leave, you can come along with me. I'll go wherever boss goes. Growl, Sokka's, your stomach is growling. Hee hee. I'm hungry. Let's eat a little something before we set off then. Wait here, boss. I'll go and catch us some seafood. It's all right. I have some good stuff here. A divine beast's flesh was naturally no joke. When the aroma started to waft, Sokka's drool almost drowned the endless oceans next to it. However, when the pork was cooked, something tragic happened. Sokka's actually couldn't bite into it. A great, violent saint domain-level multi-armed behemoth actually couldn't bite or chew the pork. Sokka's was so anxious that it was close to tears. Couldn't get a taste despite the delicacy sitting right in front of it. How infuriating. Looks like you're not fortunate enough to enjoy the food, Sokka's. Meng Lei shook his head and said, Never mind, have some dragon meat instead. With a grand wave, Meng Lei brought out a 100 meters long golden colossal dragon carcass. A golden colossal dragon. Sokka's eyes almost fell out of their sockets. A golden colossal dragon was an existence that could rival a golden behemoth, yet his boss actually intended to roast and eat it? Wasn't that a little too extravagant? In spite of that, Sokka's didn't hold back at all. A round of furious gobbling and chowing later, it actually finished a good half of the golden colossal dragon. A glutton had totally taken over it. All right, now that we're full, it's time to return. Upon returning to the imperial palace, Meng Lei discovered the arrival of some familiar faces. Apart from that, another dozen or so villagers like Captain Hutters, Jonah, Joseph, Andrew, and Uncle Leo were also present. Classmates, teachers, friends, fellow villagers. Not one more and not one fewer, all of them had come. Meng Lei. Everyone quickly went forward. You're all here. Meng Lei greeted them one by one. Then, to Pahaman, he instructed, Pahaman, get someone to prepare some wine and food. I'm going to show everyone a good time. I've already gotten someone to prepare the wine and food, master. You can start the banquet anytime, replied Pahaman respectfully. Have them served, Meng Lei instructed with a wave. Yes, master. With a clap from Pahaman, a group of graceful palace maidservants carrying exquisite food and drinks stepped into the palace and placed them on the table. Have a seat, everyone. Let's eat as we speak. After dismissing the palace maidservants, a smiling Meng Lei said, All of you must be hungry after such an arduous journey from the Fire Dragon Kingdom to the Imperial City. Let's eat. Then they began to dig in. A round of food and drinks later, Meng Lei went straight to the point. President, what is the Fire Dragon King trying to do by getting everyone here? As expected, I can't hide anything from you. Fred said with a wry chuckle. Meng Lei, His Majesty would like to request that you give him a way out. Give him a way out? Meng Lei swayed the wine cup in his hand lightly as he said, I'd originally thought of Flit the 66th as a wise man, but little did I know that he's actually this ridiculously foolish. Does he think that I'll give him a way out just because he asks my friends, teachers, and fellow villagers to plead for mercy on his behalf? Little does he know that such actions would only backfire and disgust me even more. Thaniel. Yes, master. Thaniel quickly jogged into the room. At the sight of Thaniel, President Fred's countenance changed drastically, and he quickly got up to bow in greeting. However, Thaniel lowered and hung his head instead, not even casting a glance at him. It was as if he hadn't even seen him. Make a trip to Fire Dragon Kingdom and bring the Fire Dragon King. Flit the 66th here, Meng Lei said dispassionately. I'd like to ask him if his head is harder won than the 7 dragon half-deities, or if he thinks he deserves to be shown more consideration than Frederick the 32nd. Yes, master. Thaniel bowed in acknowledgement before retreating from the room. Grandmaster? Fred stared at Thaniel from the back, great tidal waves churning in his heart. The Grandmaster has actually... Please don't blame me for being heartless, President. What goes around comes around. This is just karma. Meng Lei sighed softly and said, For 40,000 years, the humans have been exploited and abused by the dragons. Billions of humans were capitalized on by the dragons. Suppressed, exploited, and discriminated against, they have no status, no freedom, no chances of cultivating. In the 4 classes stratification system, humans are the lowliest of all. How ridiculous is that? And how cruel is that? Meng Lei said with a shake of his head. A very long time ago, I made a serious vow to myself. Should there come a day where I possessed enough power, I'll definitely overthrow the Colossal Dragons' reign and destroy this disgusting, warped reign and return a beautiful world to the humans. Fred could only chuckle wryly again and again while Hutters, Dirk Norway, Fatty Hart, and the others' blood boiled with passion, their emotions surging from his words. There were only looks of worship left in their eyes. Now that I have the power and ability to do so, I naturally have to fulfill my promise. As he gazed at Fred, Meng Lei said, Therefore, please don't stop me, President. Please don't beg for mercy on behalf of those colossal dragon nobles who only occupy high positions but do nothing for the people. This will only sour our relationship. I understand now. With another wry laugh, Fred sighed and said, I get it now. You don't need to say any further. Thank you for being understanding, President. Meng Lei nodded slightly. Then he turned to Dirk Norway and the others and asked, Mr. Dirk, can you tell me what kind of benefits Flit the 66th had offered all of you? Benefits? Loads of them, Dirk Norway said with a laugh. He promised that upon succeeding, not only would he bestow upon me 10 laws of nature origin crystals and aid me in ascending to Saint Domain level, but he'd even confer me as a Duke of the Kingdom and bestow a territory of 250 square kilometers upon me. I'm not going to beg for mercy on his behalf, though. Dirk Norway smiled smugly as he said, I knew right away what you wanted to do after hearing that you've killed the Emperor and all the court officials. At this point, fanaticism and agitation filled Dirk Norway's eyes as he said, This is the humans, best opportunity in the last 40,000 years to stand up and become the master. If I beg for mercy on his behalf, I'll become a sinner of the human race. How can I possibly still bring myself to stand with my back straight in this world if I do that? Well said, Mr. Dirk. Daniel praised aloud. Captain Hutters and the others also nodded incessantly. As expected of the Mr. Dirk I know. Meng Lei also broke into a smile. I knew right away that you're a pure human when I first met you. Therefore, you must have been very disappointed when you learned that I also possessed the dragon bloodline. Right? Of course I was. Dirk Norway didn't shy away from the topic because of President Fred's presence. He shook his head and said with a laugh, I had always thought that you were a pure-blooded human genius. Little did I know that you were also a dragon person. I was indeed disappointed for quite a while back then. Speaking of which, though, don't you also possess the dragon bloodline? Why are you so ruthless toward the dragons and granted them no mercy whatsoever? This was also something that had troubled President Fred all this while, and he looked at Meng Lei with perplexity in his eyes. Meng Lei didn't keep it a secret. I have a special ability that allows me to assimilate other bloodlines into my body. I see. I understand now. Realization dawned upon both Dirk Norway and President Fred. No wonder Meng Lei had suddenly awakened the Fire Dragon bloodline and subsequently even the Golden Colossal Dragon bloodline. So it was because he had a fascinating ability like that. With a casual flip of his wrist, Meng Lei took out 100 laws of nature origin crystals and passed them to Dirk Norway. Mr. Dirk, you've been stuck at the pinnacle of 9th grade for a very long time now. These laws of nature origin crystals should be of help to you. Laws of nature origin crystals. A huge shudder went through Dirk Norway as he exclaimed, How can this do? These are too precious. I can't take them. I made a small windfall during my trip to Dragon Island recently, so I have tons of laws of nature origin crystals, explained Meng Lei. You can just take them without any worries. In that case, it'll be disrespectful of me to decline any further. Dirk Norway was awfully excited. Thank you, Menglay. If there's anything you need in the future, feel free to let me know. Be it the most dangerous of places or the most severe of trials, I'll do it all. What a coincidence. I really do have something that I need your help with. A smiling Menglay said, Sir, you should also be aware that there are many things that need to be rebuilt from scratch at the moment. I urgently need talents. If you have friends who can be of help in this aspect, please introduce them to me. Don't worry, I'll get into contact with them immediately when I get back. Dirk Norway nodded heavily. He could roughly guess just what kind of situation Menglay was currently facing and knew what he needed. I'll have to trouble you then. Menglay gave him a small smile. Then he turned to Fatty Heart, to whom he couldn't help but chastise mockingly. Fatty, aren't you usually very perky and chatty? Why are you as timid as a mouse today? Fatty Heart's flesh quivered as he gave a wry laugh and replied, Old bro, golden colossal dragon blood also runs in my veins. I'm afraid that you'll kill me. Is that even considered golden colossal dragon bloodline? Menglay said dryly. The golden colossal dragons have never once acknowledged you as a fellow clansman, you know? Upon hearing that, Fatty Heart broke into a bright, beaming smile. I knew you wouldn't kill me, old bro. When I left the house, my old man kept reminding me over and over to be more respectful toward you. He even said something about how it's not the same anymore, and that you're a ruthless dragon murderer that rejects the dragon's existence. I knew that my old man was ridiculously wrong. No matter how estranged we become, old bro, you'll never kill me. A brother whom you studied with. Brother? Dare you proclaim to be brothers with me when you're that weak? Don't you elevate your standing, replied Menglay jokingly. Then he took out a divine tree fruit and tossed it over to him. Eat this and ascend to Saint Domain level soon. Otherwise, I have no friends like you. What's this? A look of puzzlement came over Fatty Heart's countenance. Menglay casually explained, the divine tree's fruit. It's something that can allow humans and magical beasts to break through to Saint Domain. Then he took out another dozen or so fruits and gave them to Daniel, Captain Hutters, Joseph, Jonah, and the others. He had already checked these fruits. They didn't contain the tree of life's divinity, so the others could consume them with peace of mind. Break through to Saint Domain? Does a treasure like that really exist? This is too precious. We can't accept them. Everyone received a huge shock and declined the fruits repeatedly. I have no use for the divine tree fruits, so just take them with peace of mind. A smiling Menglay said, Besides, all of you are people whom I'm close with. Who am I supposed to give them to, if not you? This? All right. Only then did they accept the divine tree fruits from him. Fatty Heart held the fruit in his hands, so agitated that he was close to tears. I, Fatty Heart, have suffered humiliation ever since I was born. They said that I've tarnished the golden colossal dragon bloodline and that I'm a disgrace to the dragons. They even said that I'm just like my old man, that I can only use the name of the golden colossal dragon bloodline to get by for my entire life. Who would have thought that this day would come where I, Fatty Heart, could also attain the Saint Domain level? Sob, thank you, old bro. Getting to know you is the most fortunate thing that has ever happened to me in my life. Can't you be a little less of a good-for-nothing? Menglay rolled his eyes at him. Cultivate well and attain Saint Domain level soon. If you can refine your bloodline and transform into a golden colossal dragon, I'll appoint you as the new Dragon Emperor and put you in charge of managing New Dragon Island. Really? A jolt went through Fatty Heart. Menglay snorted lightly and said, Have I ever lied to you? Hee. Old bro naturally keeps his word. I'm absolutely certain about that.
Fatty Heart snickered sneakily.
Captain Hutters. Menglay turned to Hutters and the dozen or so villagers. He said, Why don't all of you stay since you're already here? How about this? Let's bring all the villagers here and let them stay in this imperial palace. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Hutters received a huge fright. All of us are just simple men from the countryside. We're used to living in the mountains. How would we be qualified to live in these imperial palace courtyards? There's nothing wrong with that. If the colossal dragons can live here, why can't you? Meng Lei waved him off and said, everyone can move here and cultivate here in the imperial palace. Those who should be training their body would train their bodies. Those who should be cultivating battle aura would cultivate battle auras. Those who should be practicing magic would practice magic. With specialized staff in charge of meal preparations, wouldn't it be better? Hutters could only laugh wryly, actually rendered somewhat speechless for a moment there, while the others were secretly lost for words. How willful! That was too goddamn willful. Giving away divine tree fruits without a second thought, allowing people from the countryside to move to the imperial palace. Just how egotistical must he be in order to do something like that? Where is Meng Lei? At that moment, a cold, aloof voice suddenly traveled over from the skies and exploded like a thunderclap, clap, clap. He gave off a domineering and intimidating aura, which made one tremble with fear and alarm. Where is Meng Lei? The blond, middle-aged man looked aloof and distant as he haughtily overlooked everyone in the imperial palace, his voice booming like thunder. Are you looking for me? Meng Lei rose into the air. So, you're Meng Lei? The blond, middle-aged man eyed Meng Lei up and down before commenting. Valor is better demonstrated by the young, indeed. I've heard that a monster has emerged in Dragon God Empire recently. Not only did he kill the Empire's emperor, but he even wiped out the Half-Deities on Dragon Island. A dispassionate Meng Lei asked, who are you? The muscular middle-aged man replied with a smile, I am Thackeray of the Golden Dragonlion clan. The Golden Dragonlion clan? President Fred's countenance changed at once. Dirk Norway hastily asked, do you know of them, President? The Golden Lion clan is an extremely ancient, long-standing clan. In terms of heritage, they are second only to the 4 great empires. Fred explained, it's said that the clan's Golden Dragonlion bloodline passed down from generation to generation is a divine beast bloodline. Therefore, members of the clan need only to awaken their Golden Dragonlion bloodline, and they'll be able to step into the Saint Domain level for sure. Divine beast bloodline? Able to step into the Saint Domain level for sure. Dirk Norway couldn't help but gasp. No one knows where the Golden Dragonlion clan is located. Neither does anyone how many powerhouses the clan boasts. All we know is that descendants of the Golden Dragonlion clan will travel to the continent for training every once in a while. Apart from that, we know nothing about them, Fred explained with a sigh. The Golden Dragonlion clan? I don't know of them. Meng Lei shook his head. Neither have I heard of them. Thackeray's eyes narrowed slightly, a fierce glint flashing across the depths. Then, with a smile, he said, it's fine even if you don't know us. You'll get to know us today. One of the reasons for my arrival today is to congratulate you. First of all, congratulations on capturing Dragon God Empire, my young friend Meng Lei. From now on, you will be the master of a country and own billions of believers. Gathering power of faith, establishing a divine nation, and attaining true godhood is within sight. To congratulate me? Meng Lei's lip corners quirked upward. I'm afraid that isn't your sole purpose in coming here, is it? How astute of you, my young friend. Thackeray gave him a leisurely smile and replied, you should know that Dragon God Empire occupies vast territory and boasts a great number of citizens. However, you're young and lack sufficient forces backing you up, so I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to handle everything. Therefore, my purpose in coming here today is to lend you, my young friend, a helping hand and assist you by jointly managing Dragon God Empire, thereby relieving you of your worries and concerns and rendering aid to you. Meng Lei couldn't help but laugh. Then, he looked around him and asked, are the few of you also thinking the same thing? There was only silence in the surroundings. No one answered him. Since you're here, then just show yourselves, Meng Lei said calmly. To act so sneakily and secretively despite being a great half-deity, aren't you behaving a little too pettily? You've discovered them, Meng Lei. Thackeray, the Golden Dragonlion, burst into loud laughter, and then he said, dear all, since he has already discovered your presences, then you can just show yourselves. Whoosh, whoosh. Whoosh! A few shadows flashed by and showed up beside Thackeray. Each of their presences gave off a powerful aura that easily intimidated one. Meng Lei, my young friend, let me make the introductions. Thackeray pointed at a 1,000 feet tall giant that had firm, intertwining muscles all over him and said, "This is Bubbles the Fallen Titan." Bubbles was once the Dark Titan King of the Titan Empire's 12 Pillar Kings, and pure Dark Titan royal blood flows through his veins. Bubbles the Fallen Titan. Fred's countenance changed drastically, and he exclaimed in a low voice, "Oh my God! To think it's actually him! Not only is he actually still alive, but he has even become a half-deity?" Dirk Norway quickly asked, "President, do you know of Bubbles?" Thackeray is right. Bubbles was indeed once one of the Titan Empire's 12 Pillar Kings, the Dark Titan King. His title was the Black Bear King. Fred lowered his voice and explained, "However, Bubbles was rumored to be extremely lecherous. It's said that he snuck into the Titan Imperial Palace and raped the beautiful Empress of the Titan Empire, cuckolding the Titan Emperor of that time. An armed rebellion had broken out after the incident. The outcome after that is self-evident. Bubbles failed in his rebellion and was suppressed by the Emperor. Not only was he stripped of his Dark Titan King title, but he was also sentenced to capital punishment where he had bled to death while still alive." Astoundment filled Fred's countenance at this point. Never would I have thought that he'd actually still be alive. On top of that, he's even become a fallen titan. This is practically inconceivable. He cuckolded the Titan Emperor. Everyone was rendered speechless by Fred's explanation. A tiny little human being like you has actually wiped out the dragon half-deities? Unbelievable. The fallen titan widened his millstone-sized eyes, which were filled with curiosity. "You're the first titan I've ever seen." Meng Lei was also sizing up Bubbles. A look of great interest flashed across his eyes. "What a great honor!" The fallen titan burst into loud laughter. His laughter was as though the rolling thunder that reverberated throughout the surroundings. "This is the ruler of Sunset Ranges, Ambrose the Chimera Queen." Thackeray gestured to a graceful and sexy beauty with heavy, glamorous makeup. "Hee. My young friend Meng Lei has taken revenge on my behalf by slaughtering the dragons. I have no way of repaying your great kindness, so how about I betroth myself to you?" The Chimera Queen giggled softly with her hand over her mouth, her charming eyes sending him an electrifying and bewitching gaze. In spite of Meng Lei's tough nature, an electrifying sensation couldn't help but come over his whole body. "Do you have a feud with the dragons?" Meng Lei was rather surprised. "You have no idea at all, Meng Lei, my young friend." The Chimera Queen pursed her lips and explained, "We chimeras were originally also part of the dragons. However, due to our appearance, we were ultimately expelled by the dragons and forced to move to Sunset Ranges, thereby forming a feud between the two of us." "I see." Realization dawned upon Meng Lei, who then couldn't help but ask, "Where's Sunset Ranges?" His question startled Ambrose a little. Then, she giggled femininely and replied, "Sunset Ranges is located at the Titan Plateau. It's at the borders between the Titan Empire and the Beast People Empire." "All right." Meng Lei nodded slightly. Then, he turned to the fourth half-deity and asked, "And who are you?" "I am Nagaros, the Empress of the Dark Fairies." Without waiting for Thackeray, the fourth half-deity introduced herself. She had long silver hair that cascaded like a waterfall. A blood-red crown adorned her head, and she wore a long robe the color of blackish blood and a blood-red dagger at her waist. Her ears were sharp and pointed, and her facial features exquisite. Dressed in a black translucent organza dress, her voluptuous and graceful feminine body brimmed with an alternative seductiveness and teased the eye. "The Empress of the Dark Fairies?" Meng Lei was mildly astonished. He couldn't help but take a few more looks at her. "So it's the Empress of the Dark Fairies. I've heard a lot about you. We Dark Fairies have lived underground for all the previous generations. Aside from those hypocritical fairies of nature, very few have ever heard of us." The Dark Fairy Empress sounded cold and aloof. Evidently, she didn't quite believe Meng Lei. I've heard about the dark fairies only because I've read about them in an ancient textbook. Meng Lei gave her a small smile, and then his gaze swept across the 4 half-deities one by one. A golden dragon lion, a fallen titan, the chimera queen, the dark fairy empress. So, the reason for your sudden visits today is because all 4 of you wish to relieve me of my worries and troubles? Asked Meng Lei with a smile. We'll speak openly. The fallen titan said, at our cultivation level, deification is a far and distant journey with no end in sight if we depend solely on ourselves for cultivation. In fact, you can even call it wishful thinking. Therefore, we need worshippers, we need to spread our faith, and we need to collect the power of faith. That way, perhaps we might have a chance at deification and become a supreme existence like that. Then, the fallen titan glared at Meng Lei and said, since you've taken down and occupied the vast dragon god empire, I hope you can set aside 1/5 of the territory for me to spread my faith. What about you? Meng Lei turned to the chimera queen. Sunset Ranges is barren and bitterly cold. Not only are we severely lacking in resources, but we are also located at the borders between the Titan Empire and the Beast People Empire, which has thrown us into great suffering because of the 2 empires warring. The chimera queen said softly. Besides, we chimeras were originally part of the dragons. Returning to Dragon God Empire and taking back everything that belongs to us is the long-cherished wish of us, the Chimera clan. So, Meng Lei chuckled. I hope that you can take pity on the chimeras and hand over the Wood Dragon Kingdom, as well as the forests in the vicinity of the kingdom, to us, the chimeras, so that we may use it as our new habitat. The Chimera Queen gazed at Meng Lei hopefully with her sensual eyes. The Wood Dragon Kingdom and the forests surrounding it roughly make up about 1/5 of Dragon God Empire's territory, doesn't it? Nice plan. With a soft laugh, Meng Lei then turned to the Dark Fairy Empress next. I'm sure the Great Empress likely is thinking the same thing too. A man's wealth is his own ruin, the Dark Fairy Empress said in a cold and aloof voice. Dragon God Empire is a piece of juicy meat. By right, everyone who catches sight of it should be entitled to a share of it. All that catches sight of it should be entitled to a share? Meng Lei let out a soft chuckle. Leaving the underground world and establishing a dark fairy empire has always been Nagaro's long-cherished wish. To see the wish fulfilled, the Empress fears nothing. Thackeray, the golden dragon lion, was full of praises for her. Then he said, Meng Lei, my young friend, Dragon God Empire is a piece of juicy meat that all the half-deities in the continent are eyeing covetously. For the sake of the power of faith, they will resort to anything. Wolves in the shadows surround you, while hungry tigers also linger at your door. Your current situation is extremely dire. A moment of carelessness would see you cleanly devoured by these starving half-deities. So, all of you are here to help me out? Meng Lei's lips corners quirked upward, seemingly amused. That's right. We're here to help you, of course. In fact, we're willing to form an alliance with you. Thackeray, the golden dragon lion, said, as long as the 5 of us form an alliance, we'll be able to look out for one another and stand against those who invade us, thereby helping to safeguard Dragon God Empire. Meng Lei couldn't help but laugh. Such highfalutin talk. At the bottom of it all, aren't you just trying to snatch a slice of the pie from me? Meng Lei turned to the other 3 and said, if I do as you wish and give away 1/5 of Dragon God Empire's territory to every half-deity who comes here to ask for it, even the enormous Dragon God Empire probably won't be enough for all of you to split among yourselves. Isn't it? Meng Lei, my young friend, in that case, you aren't agreeable to it? Thackeray's brows drew together slightly. Of course. I'm not going to goddamn agree, you huge fool. Meng Lei suddenly broke into expletives. I'll tell you this, Dragon God Empire is mine. Don't anyone dare think of taking away even an inch of the territory. Not even the heavenly gods. Whoever dares to reach out for it will have their hand chopped off by me. Whoever dares to eye and covet it will be freaking cleaved apart by me. If you want to steal my cake, then it'll depend on whether your head is hard enough and whether your neck is tough enough. How audacious! How impudent! How presumptuous!